My father calls me Michael Todd. And when he says Michael Todd, it's serious.
Click.
And I'm sitting there and he comes in the house. He goes, Michael Todd. And I just kind of gave him one of these. Yeah, man. He goes, and he stood there and he got quiet. And he goes, Michael Todd. And I went,
oh, you got 2 strikes.
I gave him no. I gave him this. I went,
oh no.
And he walked right up to me. He took the phone out of my hand and said,
boom,
million pieces. Okay. I was like, okay, all right. I went outside and he had just bought a brand new, like, riding lawnmower. Had the headlights in it. I took a baseball bat and and hit the front of his mower. One swing, boom. I turned around. Cold.
Hell
cold. Yeah. I woke up in my bed, in my bedroom. My mother was holding me, rocking. Oh, he killed you. He killed you.
Oh my gosh.
I get up. I swole up. I walk into the living room, sit on the couch, looking at my dad. He's in his recliner. He looks at me, and I'm like, and all he said was, we good? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And he just goes, sorry about your phone. I went, sorry about your mower. He goes, oh, no, you're going to pay for it.
You're going to pay for that.
Oh, no, you're going to pay for it. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's a brand new John Deere.
But like the same as you, Chris, like my dad is my best friend.
Let's go!
All right, so welcome back, everybody. I Came with Fire podcast. Today we got Todd Spears, but we were just talking before backstage. Todd and Chris were both talking about how they were the retards of the NFL because Todd's a Cowboys fan and Chris is a cheesehead. So let's go back in.
Go Pack, go.
Well, I mean, dude, like Green Bay, I'm jealous of your quarterback, man. The kid's young. Yeah. I mean, he picked Dallas apart last year, and Dallas didn't have a bad defense. I mean, they had a really good defense last year.
If you guys had a really bad injury on that defense too, unfortunately.
Yeah, dude. Trayvon hurt. Like that hurt.
If I was to say anything about the Packers, the way that they grow up their skills players is ingenious. And you got to understand, like, it's the only community owned, NFL team that still exists. So they're beholden to their shareholders, of which I am one. I bought my wife a share a few Christmases ago, so we have it mounted in the dining room.
Jerry Jones ain't selling us nothing.
Yeah, no, but like they do a very good job. Like if you look especially at the quarterback position, where they went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to now Jordan Love, the guy that they have, they do a good job of growing those dudes up.
Yeah, they do, man.
Putting them in. Yeah.
I can honestly say the only thing Jerry Jones is good at is drafting. That's it. He can't after firing Jimmy Johnson, which was probably the stupidest move in football history. The guy just won back-to-back Super Bowls, and you get rid of him for Barry Switzer.
And he did the same thing in college, too. That's a pretty hard jump. Not everybody that's successful in college turns it over to the NFL. Look at Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, exactly. I thought we were going the right way when he hired Bill Parcells, and I was like, okay, all right. But then he fired Bill Parcells to keep Terrell Owens, which that worked out great. I mean, that worked lovely.
Sure.
And then you get Jason Garrett, who is like Jerry Jones's cousin. I mean, he probably lived in the doghouse in Jerry's backyard.
Talk about your DEI hire, right?
Yeah, exactly. Good offensive coordinator, but not a head coach at all.
Here's a question for you guys, because both of you are by far better football fans than me. My love for the NFL is one of the things I put on kind of the side as I've gotten more involved in politics, unfortunately. But who do you guys think is like the greatest backup quarterback of all time? I'd be interested to know.
Oh, that's a tough question.
That is a very tough question.
I wanted to make you both think.
Tom Brady?
Well, come on now.
Bro, Drew Bledsoe gets blasted, and then he comes in, and then, Drew's like, hey, keep my seat warm, and Tom's like, actually, I'm about to go make the greatest run a quarterback has ever seen, ever.
Well, it's either Tom Brady or Tony Romo, because that was basically Drew Bledsoe's backup for both teams.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So,
crazy.
I would say Tom. I'll go with Tom Brady though. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, there's without a doubt.
Yeah.
Dude literally went from the bench to the greatest quarterback of all time. So
Agreed,
that's
100%.
crazy.
And that's me, a dude from Mississippi, agreeing when Brett Favre is like from Mississippi. So like,
He
yeah,
is, yeah.
yeah.
Although
yeah.
I will say about. Have you seen him do an interview in like the last 5 years?
He's horrible.
Brett Favre.
It's hard. Yeah,
He's
Yeah.
so
Brett,
bad, man.
It's hard to watch. You can
It
see
really
that
is.
Got knocked in the head a few.
Yeah.
That is
And,
that
like-
is classic. That's classic Breacher syndrome.
Yeah, 100%.
When you see him talk, yeah, that is
Yeah.
classic Breacher syndrome. Yeah,
Just hitting the
it's-
head one too many times. I'm
Yeah.
surprised. I'm really surprised that Troy Aikman still has his wits about him, because the last few
That's another one that
seasons,
got
like
beat
he had
up.
like 9 concussions, like and he still went out there. So yeah, kudos.
Have
to
you guys?
Troy.
My dad was telling me about this. I was on leave a couple weeks ago and got to go see my family over in Wisconsin, and he was telling me that they recently made some changes to the NFL rules on special teams. Are you guys tracking this?
Are you talking about like the new kickoff rules?
Yeah, those ones.
It is different. I couldn't even. I think it. Everybody has to line up on the 25 now or something like
Right.
that.
And then the hip tackle. Now you can't hip
Oh,
tackle.
yeah, the
no more.
hip drop tackling.
Yeah, the hip drop.
I mean,
Like,
that's what.
you can't wrap somebody up and just fall.
Yeah, well, that's
And,
what
like-
ended Jordan Travis's career at FSU early last year.
Yep.
Someone hip drop tackle him, and he came up, dude, and his fucking leg looked like this,
Just went,
and I just was like, "Oh my god, it's
Oh,
over!
yeah.
It's
well,
over."
here's my
Yeah.
question: if you can't do that anymore, who's going to tackle Derrick Henry?
Bro,
Like,
you better.
how you? I
No,
ain't
you
standing
better-
in front of him.
I
I
know.
promise you that. Like,
Cats are gonna be putting shanks in their socks,
yeah,
dude.
for
Just-
real, bro. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I gotta say, I'm the
That
Cowboys.
guy's an animal.
I
Witness
am
me.
I am a Cowboys fan through and through, but I gotta say, dude, I'm pulling for the Ravens. Like, I really am. I'm so pissed off at Jerry Jones right now. Derrick Henry hit free agency. You pay that man whatever he wants and bring him to
dude,
Dallas.
I agree, man.
Like,
That's
you're an
just fucking
instant
nuts.
Super Bowl contender, even
Could you
with Dak
imagine-
Prescott.
Him and Tony Pollard just fucking
mm,
stable.
mm,
Just my
mm.
God, that would have been insane, dude. And I like Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, dude. I think he's a good
He's
running
a
back.
great back, but he's not a starter. He's not an every.
He's
He's
not.
not an every down back. You know, he's
No,
just
which is
not.
why I think like even when Zeke was still there, like Zeke just wasn't what he used to be.
No, but we
and
brought him
Tony
right
could pick
back.
up. Right, you did, man. And just having when Derek gets tired from just running people over like a freight train. That's it, man. That defensive line gets tired. You put fucking Tony Pollard in
And
there.
then just little
Yep,
gone. Same
Yeah.
thing.
Do
I mean, he's
That
been doing it
1-2
for
punch,
years.
man.
Do the stats still hold true? Do you guys know that like fullbacks and halfbacks, like they're still like 3 to 5 good years? Is that still the stat?
At most.
At most?
Like at
That's
most. I mean,
wild.
well, you look at Zeke. I mean, Zeke is a prime example. Now, Derrick Henry's a freak. Like, I mean,
He
he's
is.
a freak. Like, he's
He's
probably
the exception,
gonna.
not the norm.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, Zeke was good for 2 years. Like,
Mm.
maybe. But
Yeah.
then again, Zeke got fat, he got lazy, and that's what happens to a lot of these guys. But I mean, yeah. But the question is why? Like, Emmitt Smith ran the ball for like 10 years. You know,
He
what's
also
the
had some
difference?
amazing O lines.
Oh, yeah, he did. I'll be
Yeah.
the first to admit, like, the greatest running back in NFL history is Barry Sanders, by
Yeah.
far. Not
The
even
Could
close.
greatest
could
running
you
back of all
imagine
greatest
him
running
with a
back
di-
ever?
Yes,
If he had Dallas's offensive line,
he would have broke
Bro, it
every
would've been
record.
not
Every
even
record.
close. I agree. Yep. I mean, the guy literally
What about
retired early.
Corey Dillon, man?
Barry, bro. Are you serious?
He's like, you guys are like, yeah, I just got. Oh, okay.
Hey, and that's it, guys. Good night. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Chris is out of here. Yep.
All right, so rotating off of sports, Todd, it's
There's
so
that
good to have you
special
on
needs
tonight.
coming up.
Can you shout out where people can find you? I know you're getting ready to drop a brand new show that I want you to be able to shout out where everybody can
dude.
find you there. And then I have a question for you to make you think, and then we're just going to jump into this.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So everybody can find me. I'm typically for the last year. Actually, today was my 1-year anniversary of joining Graham
saw that.
Allen on Dear America.
Congrats.
That's
I've
awesome.
only been doing
Congrats.
this a year, man. Like, literally. And what most people don't know is I've known Graham since he was 8 years old. You know, I mean, we grew up in the same little hometown. We actually, you know, we recruited together in the Army for a couple years.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
that's when all of this started. But you can
totally
find
tell
me
now that dude's a recruiter.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. He was pretty good too. Like, I mean, he was pretty solid. But you can find me alongside Graham Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern. And then on September the 3rd, which is Tuesday, is when I launch my new show with Casey Hill, aka the Soundboard Lord, at 1 o'clock Eastern on the same network. And that's what we're trying to do. Me and Graham, we're trying to build a network. It's just like you have Graham, you have Dear America as like the foundation. And then just to have a bunch of podcasters underneath the brand, kind of like what Bongino's doing. And if you've ever like looked at the Bongino report, he's got a lot of people like underneath him. That's kind of in essence what we're trying to do. So I'm kind of the guinea pig.
Cool. We definitely want to talk with you about that later. But where can everybody find that? Because I don't know if a lot of our listeners.
All you got to do is search Graham Allen. First thing that pops up. I mean, it's literally the first thing that pops up.
Sweet. So here's what I'm going to ask you, man. Because I know you served. You were United States Army back in the day. What is the armiest thing the Army ever did to you? And I'll give an example. And it didn't happen to me, but we were just talking about it in the office the other day, and it's too good of a story not to pass on. I had a buddy that served over in Okie, and their sergeant major of their company, his thing was tank tops and PTs. Like, he absolutely hated it. Every sergeant major has that one thing: stay off the grass, PCs, whatever it is, right? Chief Master Sergeant for you there, Air Force guy. But like, you know, every sergeant major has their he's like, I'm track. Yeah, I know. Every sergeant major has their thing. And this guy's thing was tank tops. Like, he absolutely hated it. And one dude in their company wasn't even a GB. He was just one dude in the company, I think he said, got caught off post running, and he was wearing a tank top and his PT shorts. And so the sergeant major held 5 formations the next Monday and brought everybody in, and they had to show up in full MOP 4.
Oh no.
Then they had to show up in class A uniform. Then they had to show up in class B uniform, which is your dress, then your dress with short sleeve shirt. Black. Then they had to show up in their ACUs at the time that they were wearing. Then they had to show up in their PTs. So the sergeant major was like, now you know what every uniform is supposed to look like. So every time I see, and they had to get inspected each time to make sure they were wearing the uniform correctly. So that is like that's one of the armiest things that I've heard somebody go through, and it like, I was laughing so hard.
Dude, that's pretty bad. Like, I really don't know if I can top that. Like, you know,
but we've all had it, right?
Yeah, we've all had stupid, you know, command sergeant majors like that just had these ridiculously stupid rules. I mean, we've all been there. I don't care where you've served. I don't care what base you've been to. Probably the stupidest thing I've ever seen. The PT belt. That is by far,
that thing stops bullets. You stop right now.
You know, and like when I joined, it was still like gray shorts, gray top. Like, I went to basic training like 99, 2000. So, I'm elderly. But you know, then they come out with the black shorts and everything's reflective.
Yeah.
So there's no need for a freaking PT belt.
So you running down the road and you got that like,
and no, we had a sergeant major, like we literally had a sergeant major. Like, you didn't wear it here; you had to wear it across. You know, I mean, you know, because that's it. I saw probably the worst smoking, and for those of you who don't know, that's push-ups, sit-ups, just getting destroyed.
Star drills, bear crawls.
Dude was on the track, not on the road. Not running down the street. He was on the track running without a PT belt on and got destroyed by the sergeant major. Just destroyed. And me, I was like an E6 at the time. I walked over and I was like, what the freaking hell is going on here? Right. And dude walked over and it was this poor little E3. I was like, son, what happened? He's like, I wasn't wearing my PT belt. I was like, you're on a track. Like, it's a Humvee literally going to jump the street, run through the woods, and hit you while you're running on a track.
Bro, that kid would have gotten run over by a car, and then literally the only thing would have given a fuck about is, did he have his PT belt on? No,
Yeah.
that's fucking why.
But so the
That's
kid,
why.
That's why.
the kid got
That's why.
smoked.
I bet his hands were in his pockets too. That
Right,
he's,
yeah.
So
He
no.
probably had a lip in. He had a lip in.
Well, I
No
wish
PT,
I could
right?
tell you that was the end of his punishment. It wasn't.
oh
like-
no.
3 hours later, walk up to the company area. This kid has a pair of scissors, and
Cut the
he's
grass.
literally cutting the grass
No.
around the sidewalk. Like, I mean, he is crawling.
Did he have a PT belt on?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Lesson learned.
He was
Can't
in
be a tripping hazard on the
his
sidewalk.
uniform. He was in his ACUs with a PT belt on. Like, I was like,
I
Thank
will
God.
say this. I once had to go around the front of the company and turn the rocks over so they wouldn't sunburn. And then
Oh,
I had
dude,
to go back a
I
half
see.
hour
That's
a
later
real
and turn
thing.
them all
No,
back over
man.
again.
no, when I was an instructor, I had a stupid stick. So like I literally had a telephone pole buried in the ground about 3 foot. And when privates just pissed me off, I was like, just go get on the stupid stick right now. And I made them do the OG Karate Kid, like standing there
Oh, heck yeah.
in the middle of the company area, just watch out, and I like just stay there. Like,
Brandon,
that's
did
bring that
anything like
back,
that ever
man.
happen to you? Have you seen any? Does that stuff happen to the Air Force back when you were in?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, most of the shit that we do to each other is a little more contrived and a little less obvious, just because the Air Force gets super sensitive about like people getting like publicly put on blast. Like I've seen people get publicly put on blast before, but it's normally for pretty serious shit,
yeah,
But like,
Sure.
I mean, like we used to fuck with each other all the time. So like the first part of my career, I was nuke security, and most of the jeeping that we did was the shit we did back and forth to one another, man. Like we'd go cut chem lights open and then like fling it all over like the top of a nuclear silo, and then just get the new kid to go run an alarm on it, right? Run an alarm, and he calls in like glowing stuff, and we just basically tell him like, "Oh man, just sit down, dude. You're gonna pass out in like 2 minutes, and you're dead. I'm sorry. We'll call in EMS." And somebody, these kids are freaking out, or getting to fill up, Humvee or bags with like Humvee exhaust and shit, just dumb stuff. I mean, like we've had plenty of crap like that, people getting chewed out, but like, I don't know. The Air Force is kind of lame like that.
I will say, back when I joined, one of the funniest things that I remember seeing, and you absolutely can't do this anymore in the Army, but
There's a lot of stuff you can't do
I was
anymore.
down at Eglin Air Force Base when this happened, and I was going through the main gate, and off to the side of the road, right by the main gate where everybody was coming in for PT, there was a dude standing there, and he was holding a sign that his head fit through. But no, Todd, it gets worse. And on the sign it said, "I like to beat my wife."
Oh,
Yeah, and he was standing there, and I went through, and I was like, "Oh no!" And
Yeah.
behind
that's
me,
amazing.
I was in
Mhm.
EOD school at the time, so we had all 4 branches. Sorry, Coast Guard, you guys weren't represented.
Well, they're
like
DOT, so
Yeah, that's true. They moved him. But anyway, so behind me there was this big I don't know. It was a ton truck. I can't remember whether it was like Dodge or Chevy or whatever. But it was a Marine, because he comes through the gate and just immediately pulls his truck over to the side of the road where this dude was, gets out of his truck, and he's wearing his camis, and he walks over and he goes, "Oh, you like to beat your wife, huh?" And just cold cocks this dude in the face, and then gets back in his truck and just drives on to what he was
off.
doing. And I was like, "Oh man."
I gotta be
and
honest, man.
That
Like,
dude
Air
stayed
Force
there
used to
all
do-
morning.
Like,
They
I
used
gotta
to
be
do a
honest,
lot of
that's
stuff
something
like
I would
that.
do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm serious,
Well-
man. That's probably something I would have pulled too. Like,
Back
for
in the
real.
day, if you got a DUI, especially if you crashed your car and you were DUI, they would take your car and they
Yep.
would go drop it right by the front gate, and they would
Yep.
put like whatever unit, whoever it was, all of that information right there, and say whatever, the 60th CES is responsible for the most recent DUI at Travis Air Force Base,
And then they
or
and then they
wherever.
reset the counter. It's
Yeah,
been this many
and then-
days.
yeah, and then they would have-
no.
And then they would have you, like that guy, like stand out there every Friday night and hand out like Airmen Against Drunk Driving cards.
Oh my
right?
god!
But now they don't do that anymore, because it's like shaming.
sensitive
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. Back when they used to do punishment like that, usually that guy is not getting written up for paperwork.
Ever.
That's what I'm saying. And so it's like back in the day when we used to police each other up like
Yeah,
that,
man.
it made better men
Yeah.
because you got publicly shamed in front of your peers, which is a huge thing in our culture. And I guarantee you most of those people were not repeat offenders because they were like, I ain't going through that again.
Well,
Yeah,
listen,
for
man,
real,
I was security forces,
and it did,
bro,
and
like,
it didn't ruin your career because of
when
it.
you're standing a post for 12 hours plus during the day, you're in a little shack or you're out somewhere in the middle of fucking BFE. Somebody rolls up on you and maybe you fell asleep when they rolled up on you. They're going to get, you're going to ask them, bro, like, would you rather me smoke the shit out of you? Or do you want to get taken out of here in handcuffs and get an Article 15?
Yeah, for real.
Everybody's going to tell you, smoke my ass. And that's what happens.
100%.
You know?
Like they're so intent now on ruining your career, on or ending your career.
Oh yeah.
Like, dude, I never will
and defenestrating the NCO Corps.
Oh, 100%.
That's gone.
Yeah,
but go on with your story.
Like, I never, when I was recruiting for the Army, like I can remember, dude, when I was in basic training, they would still put their hands on you. Like, I mean, like they would still, they weren't supposed to, but they still did. Like, I got choked out by a drill sergeant in basic training, you know, and I deserved every bit of it. It's because he just had this stupid little 17-year-old redneck from Mississippi, and I don't shoot with one eye closed. I can't. I cannot. I have to have both eyes open. And so I'm at the 0 range. My gun's right. It's solid. And the drill sergeant, he comes, he kicks me. Boom. Close that eye, Spears. And I just looked and I said, I can't shoot with one eye closed, drill sergeant. I can't. Like, this ain't your daddy's rifle, Spears. And they called me the Mississippi mud duck in basic training. I mean, because, obviously, you can hear it, you know. But when I was 17, I sounded like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. Like, it was way worse. Like, it was way worse, man. Man, that dang old boy, I tell you, man, and it was way worse. So, anyway, I looked up, and he said, all right, I'll make you a deal, Private. You got 6 shots. If you don't zero that rifle in, it's 6 shots. I'm going to beat the. And I said, all right. Pow, pow, pow. Walked over. He followed me to the target. And, dude, center mass, perfect, zeroed in. And like an idiot, 17-year-old kid.
No, don't say it.
Went,
don't say it. No.
Like, just like that. And, dude, as soon as my arm extended, he hip tossed me, arm flip, boot on my throat, and he turned it. He's like, ha, and I'm sitting here face red. I woke up like face down in the grass. I went, and I looked up at him, and he goes, now go qualify, and if you don't qualify expert, you're getting it again. I went, roger that, drill sergeant.
Roger that,
just
drill
walk right on out. And that's the last problem he had. And that dude was probably, man, I was 17. It was like 99, 2000.
We talk about it all the time on this channel and it was actually my wife that made a really good point the other day. She was like, we went from us, the millennials, right? You might not be one, Todd, but I am. Unfortunately, I just slid in there. But we went from like, you don't say things like that to people because people used to, you would catch hands on the street. You go up and you talk to another man like that, right? Like you say some crazy shit like people
social
say on
media,
the internet
dude.
and in our comment section, like you'll catch hands. And then we went from there to having the ability to be anonymous online and people could hide behind screen names. And then it was just like all the things I ever wanted to say, like I'll say them now because people don't know who I am. And then my wife was like, yeah, but now you're seeing the generation of kids that grew up with anonymity online. And then they think that that's the real world. And now they're taking it back out into the real world and saying that stuff again.
No, I'm that dude.
Dude, listen.
I'm that dude.
You've seen that kid that walks around with bodyguards and all he does is shove people or shoulder check people? You seen that?
I'm that dude. I'm that guy.
Those people are literally his screen, right?
Well,
right.
He pushes people and there's some big 350-pound black dude that just standing there like, what are you going to do? And no one does anything.
That guy.
Well,
like,
and we talk.
You for me personally, you say something on social media, cross. No, I'm that dude. Like if I know you personally, hey man, what's up? Like I'm that dude. Like No, man,
like
I'm
what you
old
I'll
said.
just
school.
I'll find your IP address and then send you a photo of your house. That's what I'll do.
I'm just, man.
That's
Tyson
real
said,
passive
dude,
aggressive
that's
cybersecurity.
all social media
That's
has
not passive
done.
aggressive, dog. That Trump did that shit with a few people, man. I'm
Sure
just
did,
saying.
man. He showed the leader of Taliban a picture of his house and
I
said, "Hey,
remember
bro,
that story.
one person, one American,
That'll scare you.
gets hurt."
That'll scare you.
And I don't. And he told him, "I don't care who's in the house. I don't care if it's you and your family. All of y'all gonna die."
Did you see the story about him sitting down with one of the, I think it was one of the Russian diplomats, and it was while we were doing stuff in Syria. So I'm still active duty, so I can't get too far into it. But basically, he was having a state dinner with him, and the Russian diplomat was there. And as the story goes, he gets a report, and he looks at his secure phone, and he was like, and he leans over to the Russian diplomat, and he goes, "Just so you know, we launched this mission, blah blah blah, and we did this thing." And the Russian diplomat was like. Because he's finding out for the first time, and he goes.
So that was when they waxed.
Done.
That was when they waxed Soleimani, and it was the Russians, and then the Chinese were at the table.
Yep.
And he told him what happened.
Like a boss, Trump was.
And
just
then
like,
he repped the set on fucking Twitter and just posted a picture of the American flag.
Yeah. So
I heard he died like a dog. I heard he cried.
I wouldn't have cried.
I wouldn't have cried.
I wouldn't have cried.
I get all of that, but something stands out to me here. The statement: "You're still active duty."
I am, yes.
How are you doing this?
So I have a written legal agreement with my PAO. So long as I don't talk about anything foreign policy, I don't talk about anything inside the military, I don't talk about anything inside the army. I am good to go, man. Like I have this, we're starting it. There's just things that, and if you go, anybody that's watching this, if you go back and watch any of our episodes, watch any of the live fires, sometimes Brandon will launch into a thing, or Aaron will launch into a thing, Adam, Dorito, some of our other guys, and you'll just watch me sit back and I just don't talk about it, until we come back around. And that's just the way that it is. Adam. Until I get that sweet DD-214, and then trust me, I got some stuff
beautiful,
to say.
Man. It's so
I love the DD-214 mountains, man.
It's one of those things where it's like I took my oath to the Constitution seriously, and as I'm moving forward, I'm looking around at what happened. I was in the military for 2020. I saw all that stuff. I saw my buddies get kicked out of the military. I saw the things that happened, and I'm like, look, I see where the problem is now, and if I'm going to create a country for my sons to live in, I have to look at myself in the mirror, and I want my boys to know that when things got bad, like their dad wasn't a little pussy. Like I stood up and I said something, right? And
so how long have you been in?
I've been in since 2011.
Okay, all right. So you're well halfway there. Awesome, man, dude.
I'm rolling up on 14 years.
That is so cool, man. Like that. No, I was expecting you to be retired like me. Like, I mean,
no, that's why I'm trying to. I'm just on the other side of Riggs right now. But I do want to ask you, you said that you enlisted in 99?
Yeah.
So pre 9/11, I always like to talk to the pre 9/11 vets because you were there when things tripped over. Can you take us back to the beginning and kind of give us your Marvel Studios style, like origin story? Like, why did you enlist? What did you do when you got in the military? What was it like?
To be a total complete douchebag, I had a plan. Like I was going to join, do my time, and get out and go straight to college. Like sure, that is the look, dude. I grew up in a trailer park in Mississippi. Family had no money. I was the oldest of 4 kids.
Damn, that's so much white privilege, dude.
I know, man. Crazy. It's insane, man. The oldest of 4 kids. My dad had just started his own business, and he wasn't really seeing any turnover from that yet. And so, like, I had to find my own way. I mean, I very high score on the ACT, very high score on the ASVAB. And I told my recruiter point blank, I said, look, dude, like I'm doing just enough to go to college. And then as soon as that time's up, I'm out of here. I'm gone and you're never going to see me again. Well, obviously 9/11 happened and I was in my final week of the OG combat medic school, the old 91 Bravo.
San Antonio?
Yeah. Fort Sam Houston. And the last week you're in the field. I mean, you're in the field for the final week, and we had no connect to the outside world. So, And I tell people it's like, the old story that if you put like 20 people in a line and you tell this person a secret really quiet and have them pass it down, it's gonna start off being one sentence, but by the time it gets to the end, it's gonna be like a paragraph. So literally by the end of the day, on 9/11, at the end of the day, we knew something had happened. We knew that somebody had attacked the country, but I really thought New York was on fire. Like the whole city was on fire. Yeah. The White House gone, Pentagon gone. I thought hundreds of thousands of people were dead. And then the first sergeant came out and had a formation, told us what happened, and we still had like 3 days left. And he was like, soldiers, here's the deal. You're graduating tomorrow. We're going back to the barracks. You're graduating tomorrow. Pack your stuff. When you get home, don't unpack because we're going to war. And then, of course, we get back to the bed. Not a word was spoken. It was dead silent. And I never will forget. I was sitting next to like my battle buddy. His name was Ventry, and he was from Long Island. His brother worked in one of the towers.
Oh shit!
And so he's just unconsolable. And so of course, I follow him to the phones. And they let everybody that was from New York was first in line to make phone calls and stuff. And he, I'm standing next to him. As well as I do. You spend so much time with these people. They become just as close to you as your blood, You
still know his name.
Yeah, exactly. I still talk to the guy,
There you go.
And, I'm sitting here and he's on the phone and he just, I see him go, oh, thank God. And I'm like, he said, and he hung up the phone. He's like, dude, my brother didn't go to work today. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah.
But like,
now, were you a Christian when you enlisted?
Yeah.
Christian guy,
heathen Christian, but yes.
Got you.
Yeah, a heathen. But yeah. So there was like 6 of us that went into our little day room that had your, old school 87-inch rear projection TV that had like half the screen missing.
Bible.
Yeah, we're sitting
Bible
in there
on the table. Yeah.
On a dirty wall.
No, dude, it was a rear projection TV, so it was like this big. There were no flat screens back then. And so 6 of us, and when I tell people this story, that was the day. People say all the time, 9/11 changed my life forever. It really changed mine. Because 6 of us, and there was like 3 guys. I still remember their names: Flowers, Doty, and some Cajun Conchon last name, all from Louisiana. Me, Ventry, from Long Island, and another guy from Texas, Kuntz. 6 of us walked into that room as little boys, and we had, we were kids. And we watched that literally all night long till the sun came up. Just the reruns over and over. And I can just remember looking around that room at one point early in the morning and going, dude, our lives have changed forever. Like I didn't, when I walked out of that room, I didn't give a damn about college anymore. I did not care about college. And not to, puff my chest out or nothing.
That's not even that.
Point.
I understand
It's the way it was.
Yeah, dude. I walked out and like when I went to my unit and met my first sergeant, I said, when are we going?
Mm-hmm.
I understand. I'm just a medic. I get that. I'm a non-combatant. I understand that. But when are we going? And then for some reason, George Bush decided to send me to Iraq. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very that was a day.
So how many deployments did you get in the G1?
I went 2003 with the 4th ID, and I went back with the Guard in 2009. I went back with the 155 Brigade here in Mississippi in the Guard in 2009. So I finished. I went AGR, man. Went the active guard route.
That's
so much easier.
That's one of those coveted jobs in the military.
Dude,
I know all about it.
Bro, I tell people all the time. I actually got a friend right now that went to the same high school that I did. He's a USAREC recruiter here, active duty. And I said, dude, you need to go guard. Like, I'm just telling you, you need to go AGR. It's so easy.
Dude, the majority of the guys that I went to basic with were guard people.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys were doing the same job I was. They're like, did you get a bonus? And I was like, I'm getting like $2,000 for doing 6 years. They're like, oh man, I'm getting 30. I'm like, 30 fucking grand? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, what? You know, just pissed.
So I got a bonus. I got in trouble because I was a guard recruiter. I was AGR, went guard, got a recruiting job. And I got in trouble because after I got back from my first deployment, I went guard. And became AGR and all that stuff. And they started offering these $20,000 bonuses, $20,000 tax-free, you know, I mean, tax-free bonuses. As long as you enlisted in a unit that was deploying, you got $20,000 tax-free. Just And I said, you know what? I got an idea. I went down to one of the major car lots. Like, this guy here in Mississippi owns like 5 Chevy, Toyota, different car lots. And I had a meeting with him. I said, hey, look, man, I said, I'm offering, you know, the military's offering these kids $20,000 if they join right now. And everything that's going on, I said, can you give them something too? And he said, I tell you what, if you get somebody that joins in a unit that's willing to deploy, I'll give them another $7,000. Tax-free, and they'd come buy a car from me. And I was like, bet. He put that in the newspaper.
Dude, you were part of the unholy trinity of the high interest rate. You were selling privates 22% at 22%.
No, dude, you got
he knew for a fact he was getting that $7,000 right back in him for interest.
Dude, I'm gonna make sure these first sergeants are receiving these soldiers.
Ever, dude.
Dude, there's a picture, there's a newspaper clipping of me shaking that dude's hand going.
First sergeants all over the Army are like, fuck.
But
I got a bunch of broken specialists, dude.
It's funny, but like 6-7 weeks later, I get a phone call from like a freaking full bird colonel at National Guard Bureau going, get rid of that right now.
See?
That's illegal. Like, what you just did was illegal. And I was like, dude, I enlisted like 15 people off of that right there.
You're welcome.
Hold on, let's talk.
Did better than The Rock.
I authorized you to make that deal. I went,
me.
He's like, what about what about
AGR,
officers?
baby.
What do they get?
For real. But I thought it was a sweet deal. $27,000 to go buy you a brand new truck. You know, I mean, you should drive off the lot in a brand new
you
truck.
say that to a bunch of 18-year-olds, man. That's
Dude,
like offering them coke,
gold,
dude.
man.
Especially for Mississippi.
It's funny because, like, it's funny we're talking about this. I literally, my youngest son is a senior this year. He just turned 17. You know, I mean, it's the last kid I have graduating high school. Actually, I have 2 seniors this year. My oldest son graduated last year, and so he calls me yesterday, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come with me tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, where are we going?" He's like, "I'm going to talk to an Army recruiter." I was like, okay, all right, here we are.
Well, let me get the man right.
Yeah,
so, are you playing the silent Kaylee guy in the back?
No, dude. Well, he's like, Dad, I have an appointment at 12 with the Army and then 12:30 with the Marine Corps, and that's what I went.
Brandon
wait a minute.
Cries a little bit.
Yeah, I went, wait a minute, time out. No. And then he goes, well, but next week I have an appointment with the Air Force. I went, whew. Thank God. Thank God. So I didn't.
Brandon likes to say, he knows a lot of Army guys that were like, I wish I was in the Air Force. Never met a single Air Force guy that ever said, I wish I was in the Army.
And so I sit down, I listen to the recruiter. And of course, the Marine guy, you know, he was a nice guy and everything, but it was like, do you have what it takes to be a Marine? All that, you know, that's how they recruit, man. You know, I remember going through my recruitment process, and I actually tried to enlist in the Army as a 68 whiskey, which is really, really funny, which is what the
MOS for medics.
Yeah, it is now. Yeah, I had to transition to that. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so you were there for that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
well,
I
I had
remember
to
sitting down
transition from 91 Bravo to 91 whiskey to 68 whiskey. So it was like three different. Dude, I'm telling y'all my age right now.
No, it's all good. But I remember sitting down and the Army guy was like giving me his pitch.
Like?
It was green.
Riddled with malaria. It sucks. Yeah. But anyway, I remember the Marine Corps guy was like kind of listening because he was trying to talk me into the EOD thing. And then he catches up with me in the hallway as I'm walking out and he goes, "Hey, the whole thing you just said, you think you have what it takes to be in the Marine Corps?" I said, "Well, this guy just offered me this bonus to go EOD. Like, what kind of bonus does the Marine Corps have?" He goes, "Bonus?" He goes,
"We don't
"Son,
need a bonus.
Your bonus is you get to be a United States Marine." I was like,
but it
have a good day. I said, "Have a good day, Sergeant."
Dude, it does, man. Hey,
listen,
those kids, they hear that shit, they're ready to sign up for that.
Let me tell you, bro. I could
but God bless the young men that have that mentality.
100%,
and that's the thing that we're missing.
Yeah, dude, no and shame. to brag on my kid for a little while, the Army recruiter's like, "Why do you want to do this?" Like, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm 100%. My VA is 100%. Right. And he was like, "Dude, I know your dad. You can go to college for free because your dad's VA is 100%. So why do you want to do this?" And my son looked at the dude dead in the face and he's like, "Well, I think everybody should serve their country." And you just don't hear that anymore from these kids, man. You just don't. And I had to ask the recruiter after. I said, "Man, I'm just curious. Like, how many kids come in here and tell you they want to serve their country?" He said, "Yours." That literally. And I'm in Mississippi, dude. You know, I mean, that's. And he's like, "Man, that's the first time he said, I've been doing this for like, this is my ninth month on the job. And this is the first time I've ever heard a kid say that."
Dude, I like that you said that because it segues into something that we talk about pretty often here. We talk about like, there's all these problems in our country and how are we going to turn it around? And one of the biggest problems we have, just like any bad organization, is buy-in. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody in the United States, especially the youth, buys in to the mythos of the United States, our heritage, our history. None of these kids buy into that anymore. And that's not something you can really teach.
No, man.
You know, you have to kind of be brought up in it. You have to believe it. It has to be something that is demonstrable to people, right?
Yeah.
And so you see all these kids, you wonder, how are we going to turn this shit around? They got to believe in this country, and that doesn't exist anymore, man. It's
it doesn't. Well, and it started, honestly, and I have to say this, and this, we can go down the rabbit hole with this forever.
No, please.
But it literally, for me, it started with the COVID vaccination. You know, when they started kicking people out of the military, and hear me out, when they started kicking people out of the military for not taking the COVID vaccination, well, the ones that decided to get out were the legit sheepdogs, were the ones that had questions, were the ones that are like, "No, man, like, this don't make any sense. Like, why are we doing this when you have a 99% chance of living, you know?" And so those guys and girls are gone. Yep. And now, if you're a man, and I mean a man, like a masculine man, and I tell my boys all the time, you know, no, you have to be a monster. You should be a monster. You should be capable of violence. But it's the control is what makes you a man. And those dudes are gone. Like, and I'm sure Chris over there and still being active duty, I'm sure you can attest. The old school senior NCO sheepdogs are few and far between right now.
Yeah. They are,
and that's because being a man right now is a bad thing.
Just as an anecdotal piece of evidence, I have in my special forces company, and this is kind of wild, I can count on one hand the number of guys that have an actual deployment patch.
Yeah.
And now there's a couple of things for that. It's just because of where First Group, we do a lot of our trips and deployments. Like, they're not to hot zones right now, hot zones as you would call them. But it's like at one time we were augmenting Afghanistan, Iraq, just like everybody else. Yeah. And so you look around the company and it's like, if you see a dude with a deployment patch, I think I'm the youngest one as an E7 that has one, and everything else is the E8s and up. And you don't see a single one from the staff sergeants and down. And that's just where we are as an organization. And it says something to, because I'm sure you can talk about this too. Todd, like you go back to the 90s and then 9/11 and then going into the GWAT, right? How much did we forget of how to conduct combat from Gulf One to then?
Oh well,
And,
yeah,
and
dude,
we
it
the
was-
Army, the U.S. military has, and I gotta be careful how I say this, but the U.S. military has a cycle of behavior of going through a conflict, growing up, figuring it out really fast,
Yeah.
getting insanely good at it, which speaks
Mhm.
to our NCO core and our warrior ethos, and how, you know, the people that join the military, because of all volunteer force, getting good at it very quickly, and then turning around and being like, okay, and then losing our institutional knowledge and then starting again from zero the next time.
And
Yeah,
that's where you were saying, Todd, about like it starting in COVID. I think for at least in the Air Force, it started way earlier than that. There was a bunch of scandals with basic training. They basically went through and gutted all these people that conducted basic training. There was a massive overhaul in the Air Force and the way basic training was conducted. And that's when everybody started noticing you're getting airmen to bases, and like me being security forces or military police, right? You start noticing these kids don't know how to do certain things. They don't know how to shoot. They don't know how to handcuff. They don't know, small unit tactics. They don't know CQB, any of this stuff. They don't
yeah,
know.
right.
And you start seeing too the behavior from these kids, right? It's like they don't respect authority. They don't understand what rank means. And you start learning how they're cutting corners at basic training. So you have these generations of what were airmen, these E1s, E2s, E3s, E4s, now then becoming NCOs. And that's the way they conduct themselves. And now they're raising airmen in that way, right? And by that time, those people that were the mid-tier E5s, E6s are now E7s, right? So maybe they're still kind of on that old shit, but not really. They're trying to
Mhm.
conform to what they have to put up with every single day. So this has been going on for a long time, right? And to the point here, I have not been that person ever. I have always been the I'm an
Mhm.
NCO. It's accountability. You need to know how to do
Period.
your job. You're not going to disrespect me, right? That's how this is. And so I just got out, and I got out after 14 years in February. And one of the last conversations I had, to your point about senior NCOs, was with a senior master sergeant or an E8 in the Air Force. And I was talking to her about what I felt my responsibilities were as an NCO, because we were having a disagreement. And I said to her, I said, you guys are sitting here as leaders and you're basically telling everybody we need to get ready for World War III. We need to get ready for war with China. But on the same cuff, you're telling me that my job is not accountability. My job is not mental toughness. And she goes, you're right. Your job is to keep these airmen happy so they want to re-enlist because there's a recruitment crisis going on. And I said, no, ma'am, that is not my job.
Nope.
They're not my job. And I told her, she goes, besides, she goes, World War III is going to be a cyber war. I was like, do you even understand what that means? What a cyber war means? And think about what just happened about a month and a half ago, where that Microsoft update basically threw all those computers offline for airports around the world. You saw how
Mhm.
quickly all these airports went down. I said to her, I said, and this was like a year and a half ago, I said, do you understand that there are cables that run under the ocean that keep the
Mhm.
internet on around the world? I was like, do you remember what just happened in Ukraine where they blew up that pipeline and no one knew
Yep.
who did it? I was like, do you know how easily it would be to do the same thing to those internet cables that run under the ocean? I was like, and what happens when the internet goes down and your cyber World War III? I was like, it's boots on the ground, it's people,
100%.
it's that's it. I was like,
It
it will
always
always
comes
go.
down to the
And I
man with the
Yeah.
gun.
right. And the last
Yeah.
point I made to her, I said, look at what the Ukrainians and Russians are doing. They are literally in trenches, just like in World War One.
100%.
And
One
she
and
did not like that. But that's it. That's
no,
your
dude,
senior
but
NCO
we're
now,
not
man.
ready for that right now.
Uh-uh.
Like and I'm sorry, like, and I feel bad for like now, Chris. You're different. I mean, you're in a tier one. I mean,
Nope, not tier one.
not tier one. Okay, well,
Nope.
well to me, all you guys, like, I'm not doing what you do. Like,
No, but I can't let you say that and get away with it. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Well,
because
you guys.
somebody will clip that, and then next thing you know,
All right. Well,
Chris said.
anyway,
Chris
well,
said. Yeah.
for everybody out there, Chris is doing something that I could and would not ever do. Yours are this big, mine are this big. I'm not doing it. You guys will be fine. All right, you guys will be fine. But your everyday 24/7 Joe, we're not prepared for it. Like, we're just not. Like, I mean, there are no sheepdogs out there. The real war fighters are either out, gone, or I mean, it's scared for me as a retiree, and I can't come back. I mean, I got a fake hip and a fake shoulder. There's no coming back for me. Like if shit hits the fan, there's nothing I can do.
Yep.
You know,
It's
I
on
mean,
purpose,
absolutely.
Todd. It was on purpose, man.
Absolutely nothing. But it scares me to death. And to your point, Brandon, it always, what you guys just said, it always ends with somebody with a gun. And if you look at the recruiting right now, go watch a German or a Russian recruiting video.
Yeah.
Dude, and then go watch the U.S. Army one.
We wonder why they got recruiting issues.
And these are my two moms.
My two moms, yeah. Listen, you want people that want to do hard things. You want people that want to be in the military because it's a lethal occupation, and you advertise that kind of shit. No wonder people who would join the military don't want to join, and they sit there and pay the Rock a butt ton of money, and it don't do anything for them.
They lost. Crazy, the Army lost 68 soldiers. 68 soldiers. Like
maybe maybe the Rock should have gone on TV with Oprah and asked for money then too.
That brings up an interesting question that I have for you, Todd. Have you seen this story of the Venezuelan gangs that are taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado?
Mm-hmm. Well,
going down to it always comes down to a man with a gun.
Yeah, it does.
Like, and if you're not prepared to protect your family, which is kind of the point that I want to make, if you're not prepared, what I always say too, because like one of the things we do on this channel is like we promote masculinity. There is no 100%. Such thing as toxic masculinity. There's only masculinity. Yes. If you take a wife, like biblically speaking, you know, your job is to lay down your life for your wife and for your family. Your life is forfeit if you take a woman, if you have responsibilities, right? And so it's like we're always trying to get men to stand back up and be the leaders that God asked us to be. Like we have a God-given responsibility that we've abdicated, right?
100%.
And I think it's one of the reasons that we're in such a crisis of culture in this country is because we don't have men. We've turned into a gynocracy led by women. But if you look at what's going on in Aurora, Colorado, like there are people that are willing to do violence. Right. Like that is the way that they know, that is the life that they know. And the more that you import the third world into your nation, like average day Americans are not prepared to deal with it. And I've been saying this for a long time, vis-a-vis Aurora, Colorado, where the mayor is just saying, well, there's nothing we can do. We don't know how to deal with this. We don't have
those apartment complexes are abandoned anyway, and they're condemned. Right.
So I'd be interested to get your excuse. I'd be interested to get your take on that situation.
There are two things that Christians are saying right now that absolutely piss me off and that are not biblical in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Okay. The first is, it's okay, Todd. We win in the end.
Right.
I hate that.
Same.
With a passion.
Same.
It's true. Yes, it is true. We win in the end, but that doesn't mean that you sit on the bench during the game.
And are those same Christians actually sharing their faith and doing the Great Commission that Jesus Christ
100%.
Like,
no.
Like, I would ask that. But
because there is a large percentage of Christians that don't even vote because of that mentality. Because, it doesn't matter what happens in the world because God's going to win in the end anyway. No. And then the second thing is, well, remember now, Jesus was both lion and lamb. Okay, but and then they misconstrue that as, well, he's 50-50. No. Jesus was 100-100. The situation is what made him lion or lamb. Okay, because when he talked to the religious leaders of the world, look how he talked to them.
You are sepulchres full of dead men's bones, you pit of vipers. You
wasn't nice.
Evil generation, he called them.
Now, when he
I like to point out to people too, not to cut you off, but Jesus Christ was killed for the things that he said because they hated him so much.
Exactly. But he talked to the leaders in a completely horrible way. Vipers, brood of vipers, you know, all of this, flipped over tables in the middle of the temple. But when he went and he talked to the non-believers or the folks, the actual sinners, the people, he was gentle. Okay. And that's where we misconstrue manhood right there is, no, I'm not 50-50. And I have to tell my wife all the time, like, you don't understand the violence I'm capable of. Like if somebody hurts you or hurts one of my babies, I'm the guy that watches Law Abiding Citizen and takes notes.
Right.
Like I'm that dude. And like I heard Steve Harvey say this one time. His wife was sitting in the crowd, and he said, "Honey, I love you. I'll kill everybody in this room for you, girl. You don't even know.
100%.
I kill everybody in this room over you. That's a man."
Right. Well, you made a really good point earlier when you were talking about you didn't use the word meekness, but you said gentle strength, I believe is the
Yeah.
phrase for it.
Yeah.
But Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5 when he was doing the Beatitudes, right? He says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And then I like to point out to people what the actual adjective of meek means. Meek is not a passive like soy boy
No.
man. It's a warrior with a sword in the sheath that knows when to apply appropriate violence
100%.
and when to keep that sword sheathed, and when
100%.
words are good. Because what do they say, right? It's war is politics by other means. It's all politics. I would rather sit down over coffee, over a whiskey, over a football game and have words with somebody and then portray my ideas that way and get up and leave amicably. I would rather that be the way that the world worked. But if you come to my house like they're doing in Aurora, Colorado, you will be met with fire and fury. That's just all there is.
Yeah.
And it will be fire and fury. There will be no mercy at that point.
None.
Because if you come after my family, you will get justice 5.56 millimeters at a time.
Yeah,
You just
100%.
will.
And I knew
between being harmful or harmless and peaceful.
Yeah, and I knew
that's a great one, Brandon.
I knew we were going in the wrong direction. I was living in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, you know it well.
Great
Yeah. And my car got stolen from my house. It was parked 6 feet in front of my front door. I walked out to go to work, and boom, car was gone. And so I made a phone call. Police showed up. Guy knocks on the door, and he said, "Mr. Spears, did they come in the house?" I went, "Did you see dead bodies?" And dude, he blank faced me like really quick, like,
right.
"Mr. Spears, no, I don't. And if I did, you'd be in handcuffs right now." And I said, "What for?" And he was like, "Well, sir, I mean, you can't just kill somebody for coming in your house." I said, 2:00 in the morning. Yeah. Oh, they're all dead. And he's like, "Well,
how
you
else am I supposed to perceive that other than you wish me violence or harm?"
And see, now this is why I love Mississippi. No questions asked if they come in your yard. Like if somebody comes in my yard in my state and threatens me or my family in my yard, I'm going to put you down. It like when I moved to this house I'm living at now, very good neighborhood, never had any problems here. I'm out in the front yard one day and I hear somebody just screaming to the top of their lungs, like just rambling. And I'm like, what the freaking hell? And so I look, and at the end of the street, there's this dude, white guy, walking, obviously geeked out on something.
Sure.
And so, of course, I go back in the house and, I just
get prepared.
And I walk out to the end of my driveway and I'm just kind of standing there. And he comes walking and dude, he's like, and I mean, just gone.
I live in California. I'm familiar with that.
Like just gone. He gets to my driveway and he turns and he squares up. And dude, I pulled it, laid it on my thigh. I just laid it on my thigh and I said, "Brother, don't make me do it. I will kill you, bro. Like, I mean, I will." I said, "Dude, keep going. Just keep walking." And so he just looked and I immediately called the police, which of course I'm friends with a lot of the sheriffs here. And
I'm really glad you brought that up. I want to ask you about that when you're done with the story.
Yeah. And they picked him up at the end of the street and took him, wherever they took him and stuff. And, I thank God. I mean, I was prepared to do what was necessary. But again, that goes back to being capable of violence and knowing when to turn it up or turn it down.
Application.
Not harmless, but peaceful.
Yeah, 100%. And I gave the guy the opportunity and he took it. So good for him.
Right. So we're big fans of John Lovell and the Warrior Poet Society here. he put out a video earlier today, or maybe it was earlier this week, where he was talking about he called it the 11th hour checklist. And we're not friends with John Lovell. I would love to be friends with you, John, if you ever see this, but I do watch your videos.
Clip.
But anyway, so he was shameless plug. But anyway,
Right.
he was talking about how to get ready for what comes next, right? And I really appreciated the way that he laid it out, because the whole like prepare, stockpile ammo, food, water, that was all kind of toward the end. He was like, if you're not plugged into your community, if you if you don't know your neighbors and have a like-minded community around you, if you don't know your politicians, your local politicians, and have a voice in local government, if you don't know your local sheriff and their deputies, or the local cops that patrol your neighborhood, you're already out. You're already a stranger in your own neighborhood. He goes, this is how we build the community. And I can attest to that, because where I'm from in rural Wisconsin, I know the sheriff and I know his two deputies. In fact, I had a situation several Christmases ago where I went home and I went to the old church that my father used to pastor. And my dad always had he's been a pastor for like 30, how old am I? 34. So he's been a pastor for like 38 years. And he used to pastor this church downtown. He doesn't anymore, but he always had a policy where he left the church doors unlocked all hours of the day. So because he always said, if somebody wants to come to the house of God and pray,
they should be able to.
They should always have access to the
altar.
I
love that.
And
I don't know why more churches are not like that.
So, but this is super small.
We just got the carpets clean.
You know, you might find some money in the wall. You don't know, right? But anyway, so I went to my old church. It was after Christmas Eve service. I thought people would still be there because it was just after midnight, but they weren't. And I tried the door. It was unlocked. So I opened the door, I went in, I signed the guest book, and I walked around the church that my dad pastored for over a decade and a half, just for the memories, the feel.
Nostalgia.
And I walked around and I went up. I used to lead worship there when I was a kid, going through youth group and all that stuff. And I just kind of took it all in. Again, signed the guest book. I saw the Ring cameras that they put around, so I knew it. And I waved at one of them and I left. Just perfectly, you know, just wanted to see the old church. And later that night, I was sitting around the campfire with my father, and the sheriff's deputy pulls up and he gets out of the car and he goes, excuse me, there was a break-in at the church earlier tonight. Do any of you guys know about that? And I stood up and again, he's outside of the firelight, so I can't see. And I walk over. Come to find out, the new sheriff's deputy in town was one of my kids when I was a youth pastor before I joined the Army, and he was in my youth group. And I was like, I can't say his name. I'll call him Dave. And I was like, Dave?
Fred.
And he goes, Pastor Chris? And I was like, well, I was never ordained. But what's up, man? And he's like, Pastor Chris, it's been so long. And I was like, yeah, that was me, man. I went down to the church. The door was unlocked. There is no breaking and entering. I signed the guest book. And he looked at me and he goes, it's really good to see you. He goes, this is obviously a bogus call. He was like, I'm writing this off and I'm calling it in, like, done. And then we stopped and we chatted for like 10 minutes, caught up on him and his family, and then he left. Like, that was it. But the fact that the new pastor, you know, called in a break-in when he left the door unlocked always cracks me up.
Yeah.
But the point of that story is not interfamily drama or town drama. It's know your sheriff, know the deputies, have relationships with these people, because when it comes down to it and the tyranny falls on them, you guys both know how much harder it is to look a man in the eye that you know and you have history with and pull a trigger on that guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He used to pray for me. That guy fed me. That guy was my mentor, right? It's a lot harder, and you should have these relationships.
And just those communities alone, like the community that I grew up in, and I wish we could get back to this, but like growing up when I was in high school, the thing, dude, like there's nothing to do here. Like I graduated with 67 people, you know. I mean, there's literally, when I say there's nothing to do, like we bonfire, drink beer. Like, I mean, that's all you can do. That's it. But the sheriffs didn't bother us because we didn't tear anything up. We didn't destroy property. You know, we didn't spray paint nothing. You know, we're just a bunch of old redneck boys just driving around. Right. I mean, the worst thing we'd do is we'd kill a deer at night. You know, I mean, that's the worst thing that we do.
Just out there with
know?
a flashlight in the tree line.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
You know, you have a spotlight. One guy's holding the light. The other guy's got bean bags on top of the truck. You know,
right?
I mean, I had one of my friends kill the biggest deer he's ever killed in his life at 12 o'clock at night.
Poaching at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, we come over the top of the hill and dude's just sitting there, and he laid him right down.
I didn't fire that from the truck. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it wasn't even hunting season. Like, right. I mean, it was big, like hunting season had ended. Like, we
were
didn't
hungry.
Care.
We were
starving. We didn't care. But like, and just how things have changed just in like my little community. You know, when we were seniors, you had a senior prank. Everybody did it. You know, and we rolled the school. We took toilet paper and we rolled the school.
Same thing.
Bro, it looked like it
in
snowed.
my local high school.
That's awesome.
One of the local farmers, they let 3 pigs loose in the school.
Yeah,
for their senior prank, but they spray painted them 1, 2, and 4.
That's great.
And the school got shut down all day because they were looking for number 3.
Yeah, and so we get to school and it looked like it snowed and everybody thought it was funny and you know we cleaned it up and ha ha ha.
Right.
Well, fast forward a few years ago, same school, same community. These kids went in and they put baby oil over the common area and like on the floor. I thought it was hilarious.
Slick,
right?
Saw the camera, charged 3 of them with felonies. And I'm like, really? Like, guys, we used to do way worse than this. Like, I can remember,
right?
I got dared by my high school principal when I was a senior. He's like, none of y'all are rolling my yard this year. And I went,
bet.
Challenge,
Say less,
challenge accepted. Manchester.
So, like, bro, I was so dedicated. I skipped my senior homecoming football game and dance because I knew he had to be there.
Right.
And so me and like 4 other guys, dude, we spent $150 on toilet paper. And he had a flagpole in his front yard. I took his lawnmower, his riding lawnmower, out of his garage, tied it to the flagpole, crunk it up, and it was just doing circles. I tied it to a rope with a steering wheel. It was just doing circles around the flagpole. Now, awesome. I'm in the ditch on the other side of the road, responsible, watching, making sure it didn't like break loose and like go run into his house or something. And so he gets.
Wait, you left it running?
Oh yeah, it was just just around the flagpole, just doing circles like it was the Daytona 500. That's awesome. And I'm laying in the ditch like this, waiting for him to pull up, you know, and he pulls into his house, drives in his driveway, gets out of his truck, and he just hollers. He goes, "Spears, I know you're out there. Good job, son." And then turns his mower off, and then I walked 100 yards down the road, got in my truck and left. But dude, it was no harm at all. You know, I mean, we did stuff for fun. We didn't destroy things. But now it's like these kids don't have we used to solve problems with this.
Well, listen, man, what you're talking about, I think, is attributed, to cultural problems. But the average teenager, the average 20-year-old today has as much testosterone in their body as a 60-year-old in the 90s. Dude.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of what you're seeing. I think that the cultural issues are a symptom of whatever is happening to American males. And this is American males, right? This isn't South American Venezuelans. This isn't, Nigerians. This is American males, right? And so these issues are stemming from whatever else is happening tertiary to all of that, or they're tertiary to those problems.
100%. And I tell people all the time, like people ask me on the show, people ask me out in the street, like, Todd, what's the biggest problem in America right now? Is it the Democrats? Is it the liberals? And I'm like, no, we don't have a president problem. We don't have a political problem. We don't. We have a parent problem.
Yep.
That's the problem that we have.
I think it's specifically a father problem.
We have
what I draw
parent problem. You have kids, you have men that want to be their kid's friend, not their kid's father.
Amen.
Okay? Like when I was growing up, if you did the worst ass beating I ever got in my life was from a sheriff.
From from
not
from
from my dad. No,
My
from
dad
mine was
my
from my
ass,
dad.
dude. Yeah.
and no, it was like, so our
My dad
thing
whipped my
was,
buddy's ass.
yeah, oh yeah, like,
For real.
and dude,
Yeah.
I had parents of other kids that, like, I would tell, hey, yeah, your friend can stay the night, no problem, but I'm gonna beat him like I beat you. I need you to understand that.
My-
They
the
walked in
parents- the
door.
parents- knew that.
My dad used to have a whole speech if we ever got babysat by one of the families in the church when I was growing up. And on the way out the door, him and mom would go somewhere, and he would turn around. He goes, "Now, if you need to jerk a knot in his tail,
Yeah,
which will tell
For
you
real.
where my dad's from." He goes, "You go ahead and jerk a knot in his tail, and then
For
when I
real.
get back, I'm going to do it too."
yeah.
And that was our
My
speech
dad
on the
would
way
say
out
the
the door
same
because
thing, man.
we knew it. It was like, oh man, if I get in trouble here, I'm going to get in trouble there. And I remember one time, I think I was probably 14 or 15 years old, which I think 14 was probably my worst year when I was really going through it. And my
I was a hood rat.
mom, no, I never was a hood rat, but
Ooh, I was.
But-
Dude, I was always running around, man. I was definitely a hood rat.
I remember I came in the house and I went straight to the fridge and I grabbed something out of the fridge and I was eating it. My mom said something to me about waiting for dinner and I just shrugged it off and I didn't answer her and I just kept eating. And she came in the room and she turned me around and she wanted to speak to me. And I just wasn't having it. I was being super disrespectful. Right. And I'm going to tell myself completely. I was being super disrespectful. And she goes, "Chris," and she reached up and she grabbed my shoulders because she was like, "I want you to listen to me."
Yeah.
And I reached up with my two hands and I grabbed my mom's hands and I pushed him off.
Oh.
Right. That's all it took. And she looked at me and she said, "Okay, you just wait till your father gets
Oh,
home.
there it
If
is.
that's
That's
how
it,
you
bro.
feel
There
about
it is.
And I like
You fucked up.
my heart went into my throat and I
Yep.
knew it. And so
Yep.
I was hanging out later that night.
You
and
crossed the Rubicon, bro.
I was laying on the couch. I was watching some TV or something, and I heard my dad come in the house, and I was like, "Okay, play it cool, get up, go to your bedroom." But before I could move, all I heard from the kitchen was, "He did what?"
What?
Yep.
And I heard the
Your
footsteps coming, and
son's
I was trying to get up off the couch, and he walked around the corner, and he sees me on the couch, and he just walks in, and he goes, "You don't even move." And he reaches down and he grabs my hoodie right here with one hand, and he grabs my belt with the other hand, and he picked me up and he threw me from one room into the other. And I remember I hit the floor and skidded, and I hit the table and the chairs, and I crumpled. And he just comes walking over and he stands over to me and he goes, "You get out of my house until you figure out how you can talk to your mom right." And he goes, "If you stay here 1 second longer, it's going to be even worse than that." And I left and I went and I walked the town till the streetlights were off and everything was done. And I came back. Guess who was sitting in the living room waiting for me when I came back?
Oh yeah.
Your dad.
He was still sitting there.
Yeah.
And I came in and
You figure it out?
turns the TV off and he stands up, and it was a conversation, something like that, where he goes, we had the man-to-man conversation where
Yeah.
he just basically
One-way
said,
conversation.
he goes, "Listen, right? Something akin to, if you're going to act like a man,
Treat
then
you
I'm
like
going to
one.
beat you. I'm going to beat you like a man."
Yeah.
And he goes, "If you can't figure out how to treat a woman, then like this is how it's going to be from now on. Do you understand?" And I was just like, "Yes, sir." There's nothing else to say but yes,
Yeah.
sir.
No, you better
And
not say nothing else.
what's hilarious about that? My dad and I are best friends to this day. There is not a man that I would not call if a single thing happens.
Yep.
That he would be in my corner tomorrow. That man has driven across the country to help me and my family
Yeah.
when nobody else would, because we have a bond that goes deeper, because that man taught me how to be a man.
Yeah. Yeah. I can remember when I was
And the
like,
respect goes deep.
when I was
because of that.
16 years old, and this is I'm fixing to carbon date myself again. Before AT&T became the cell phone company that it was called Singular
Singular. Yeah.
back in
remember.
the old days.
Yeah,
all right? And I had-
the little orange dude.
Oh, orange, yeah. And I had, I was old enough. I went and bought, because my parents wasn't buying me no cell phone. So I went and bought my own cell phone, had my own plan. I was working at Captain D's.
Them free nights and weekends, baby.
Bro, I was working, yeah,
Call me
man.
after 9.
Dude, I was working at Captain D's and Blockbuster on the weekends, man. Like I
Oh,
was bringing
I
in
worked at
God.
Blockbuster too, dude.
bro, I was bringing in the bank. And so, like, I had my old flip phone, the old Nokia flip phone that you had to pull the antenna up, and I'm standing in the
You
kitchen.
could use those things as a personal, like
Dude, you could
defense
kill
device.
somebody with
You
one
could
of
kill
those things,
somebody
man.
with one of those.
But I'm
And then pick it up and call the cops.
Yeah, dude, I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm talking to like my best friend. I'm like, dude, yeah, Joey, yeah, I just got it, man. Dude, this is so great. My dad comes in the house and he goes, and of course, when I was my dad, my middle name's Todd. That's what I go by. My first name's Michael. My father calls me Michael Todd, and when he says Michael Todd, it's serious.
Click.
And I'm sitting there, and he comes in the house. He goes, Michael Todd, and I just kind of gave him one of these. Yeah, man. He goes, and he stood there, and he got quiet. And he goes, Michael Todd, and I went,
oh, you got 2 strikes.
I gave him I gave him this. I went,
oh no.
And he walked right up to me. He took the phone out of my hand and said, bam,
boom,
million pieces. Okay. I was like, okay, all right. I went outside and he had just bought a brand new, like, riding lawnmower, had the headlights in it. I took a baseball bat and said,
no.
Wow, and hit the front of his mower. One swing, boom. I turned around. Cold. Cold. Yeah. I woke up in my bed, in my bedroom. My mother was holding me, rocking. I thought he killed you.
Oh my gosh.
I get up, eyes swole up. I walk into the living room, sit on the couch, looking at my dad. He's in his recliner. He looks at me, and I'm like, and all he said was, we good? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And he just goes, sorry about your phone. I went, sorry about your mower. He goes, oh, no, you're going to pay for it.
You're going to pay for that.
He said, oh, no, you're going to pay for it. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's a brand new John Deere.
But like the same as you, Chris, like my dad is my best friend. Like, I mean, dude, my father, which my parents were divorced. A lot of people don't know this. My mother was extremely abusive, both physically and emotionally when I was younger. And I didn't get to live with my dad until I was like 10. And I owe that man everything. Like, I am who I am today. Now, my father was rough. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, he was very rough, but it's because he was so rough and stern and such a disciplinarian that I was able to overcome the things that I've been able to overcome in my life. It's resiliency. He beat resiliency into me. And I tell my wife all the time, she goes, God, it should be like, golly, like, you're just really going through it right now. And I look at her, I'm like, baby, God built me to last. God built me to last. Like, you don't know what bad is. I've seen bad. Like, me and my dad, when we were together, we lived in a trailer that literally we caught mice for fun. Like, I mean, he carried me to the grocery store. I got to buy my own rat traps. I wrote my name on the back of them. He wrote his name, and we put them wherever we wanted.
Were y'all keeping score?
Yes. and so in the wintertime, we had to sleep in the same bed because that was the only room in the house, the only room in the trailer, the heat worked. Mm-hmm. And in the summer, air conditioning,
windows open.
So much white privilege, dude.
And so, like, we'd be laying in the middle of the bed.
White privilege.
Yeah, in the middle of the night, you'd hear traps go off, and it was like Christmas, bro. We were like, let's go check. And it was mine. It was mine. I had no idea
put it on the board.
Yeah, dude, I had no idea kids weren't doing this at home. I had kids are playing Hungry Hippos. I'm catching mice,
Hungry Mouse at home, dude.
Yeah, dude. And like, so it's just little things like that these kids, they don't understand. And when I recruited for the Army, it was like I would go to a high school graduation and I would see kids walk across the stage. It's like in their mind, they're getting handed a sheet of paper that is worthless, but they think they're going to go make $80,000 a year. Yeah. That they're entitled to it.
Well, I'm so glad you said entitled, man, because that word resilience is something that the military has been harping on really bad the last 5 years and talking about building resiliency and building resiliency. They don't understand what resiliency means. They don't
No clue.
actually instill resilience in these soldiers, these airmen, right? And I can only always speak to my experience in the Air Force, right? But they teach victimhood. They don't teach resilience. They teach them how to come in and say, I've got this going on in my life. And the first words out of their mouth is, how can we put you down? How can we get you out of here? How can we do all these things? Not to actually help you, not to get you to recognize that resiliency comes from within, and that
Yeah.
resiliency is partly it's your responsibility, right? I can sit here and I can listen to you. I can offer you, these people that can help you, all these other things, but there's a responsibility, and that ultimate responsibility is you as the
Right.
person who needs to be resilient. And they don't teach that. They teach
No,
all
they
these people
don't.
how to be professional victims, and these hot
100%.
hot words to say in front of the first sergeant, and then now they're out of duty. They don't have to carry a gun anymore. All these things, they basically just get out of work. And so you see all these people that come in and they know exactly what to say because they've created a pathway, and everybody who did it goes back and says, hey man, this is how you do this. If you don't want to, you want to go on leave, you want to make sure you can go on leave, become useless. And that's what
Yeah.
they teach these kids.
A
How to
hundred-
do.
yeah.
The only person that can control your attitude is you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well,
That's
that's why.
that's one of the things that my dad used to beat into me. Like,
Me too.
he's like, no matter what else is going on, no matter how you perceive things, no matter like whatever somebody else is putting you through, the only person that can control your attitude and your paradigm is you.
Yeah, and my dad was very key at saying, son, the first word in self-esteem is self.
Yeah.
You're responsible for your own self-esteem. What
Right.
you think about yourself is the only thing that matters.
Well, and I would even jump on top of that as a Christian man, because it's like I hate the psychological idea of self-esteem, because you're saying that like you right, it's very existentialist to use a
yeah.
big word, where it's like nothing matters, but you can create your own meaning out of life. I don't like that. I
Mhm.
buck at that mentality naturally, because it's like I think that the only esteem that you can put on yourself, and as a Christian, is the fact that God said, let us make man in our own image, in the image of God, he created him. And so it's like, you are a child of God, and God loved you so much that he sent his one and only son, right, to die for you in your sin, in your absolute worst, right? And we know that God knows every sin you've committed, that you're going to commit, that you're ever going to commit, and he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so it's like, if God loves you that much, and this is one of the things I try to impart on people, is like, if God loves you that much, that's where your esteem comes from, because the creator of the world, the creator of matter, says you matter. And so because of that, you can have esteem, but it's not, it doesn't come from within, it comes from
No, man,
without.
that's why
Because,
there's so many lost people now, dude. You're talking about nihilism, and people like to
well,
point and say,
existentialism and nihilism are like the two outcomes of the same, like, nothing matters. Existentialism, right, says like you can create meaning out of nothing, whereas nihilism is like what I would describe as the logical outcome, where it's like, if nothing matters, then nothing I do ever matters, and nobody can create meaning out of anything, right? But
right. No,
yeah,
and that's
but
what I'm saying. That
continue.
nihilism, I think, is the bigger problem here with a lot of
Sure.
these people, right? And I think that's the cancer that's affecting the majority of at least our first world American society. Is everybody thinks
Right.
nothing matters, right? I don't even matter. Why does it matter if I do
Right.
this? And that is the root cause of a lot of unhappiness. It's the root cause. It's the reason why so many people are professional victims, because they find every little thing to be upset about, because it makes them feel important in that moment, because so many other people go to them online. When they come online, they make them feel important in those 5 minutes. And then when that 5 minutes of fame is over, they're on to the next problem that they can get some
Right.
sort of sympathy from people
Yeah.
on, because there's no meaning, man. And there's 100%, it kind of even ties back into what we were talking about, the recruiting problem in the military.
Sure.
Why can't you recruit people? Because you don't recruit for people who want to go into the military and be lethal. Just like there's a
Sure.
whole generation of young men who are starving for the resilience and the mental toughness and the strength that comes from having strong men in their lives. That's why I think you're seeing such a resurgence of like the Stoic philosophy, right? That's pretty
Sure.
popular right
Yeah.
now. And going
Yeah.
back to what you said, right, in resiliency, if you do not perceive yourself to be injured, then you are not injured. And that is
Right.
the whole resiliency
I
thing.
am never out of the fight.
Right.
I am
That
never
too.
I am never
Yep,
freaking
exactly.
out of the
Well,
fight, man.
and to carry it to carry that just a little bit step further, y'all might think I'm crazy when I say this, but I talk.
Well, I thought you were crazy ever since you said
Oh,
you were
no,
a Bama and Cowboys fan, but yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
see,
that don't
that's the
add
good
up,
thing
man.
about being from Mississippi, man. I'm a free agent. When it comes to pro teams, I'm a free agent. We don't have nothing, but dude, we don't have no pro teams here, so I can pull for whoever I want to. But no, you're seriously, you're going to call me out when I say this, but I really believe it. I don't think there is such a thing as an atheist. I really don't. I honest to God, I really don't. I think it's deeper than that. I think people want to believe in God. I think people can easily believe in God. I think it's about accountability. I think genuinely people who consider themselves or say that there is no God, that's not it. It's that they don't want to accept the fact that one of these days they're going to have to answer for everything they've done in their life. And they don't. And here's the prime example: abortion. Okay. The prime example for me is abortion. The same people that tell you it's my body, my choice, are the same people that tell you to shut up, take the vaccination, and trust the science.
No, that's a really good.
All right.
That
Well,
is a
let
really
me
good point.
tell you something. Trust the science. Wear a condom.
Yeah, for real, dude.
No,
Trust that
it's-
science.
It's so no, I really don't. I really to the deepest part of my soul, I do not believe there is such a thing as an atheist. I think people do not want to believe that they're accountable
And I think
for the
another
things
word
that
for
they've
that
done.
is ego. Because when you hear a lot of people who are atheists talk about it, they say, well, if God was real, he wouldn't let this happen, right? And what you're really saying is, I know better. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like listening to people talk about, well, communism didn't work there, but it'll work next time because I know how to solve the problems. And if my brand of communism was implemented, then everything would go right. I mean, you sit there and say, well, if God was real, he wouldn't let this happen, or he wouldn't do this to people, right? What you're really saying is, I know better than God. And
Yeah.
that's ego coming out right there, man.
And I will say, for
Good one,
those
Brandon.
people, I get it. I understand. I understand your argument, because other than my father, the closest man I've ever the greatest man I've ever had in my life was my grandfather, Gerald Spears. He died a few years ago of Parkinson's. And let me tell you, if my grandfather is in hell, you stop going to church, because ain't none of us got a chance. I mean, this is a man that would like walk around in his yard talking to God like he was his best buddy. Like, I mean, this was a man that when he was diagnosed, Vietnam veteran, Agent Orange caused his Parkinson's and cancer and things like that. I watched this 6'2", 250-pound man wither away to nothing.
That's hard to watch. Man.
And he had one moment. And if anybody's ever dealt with somebody that has a condition like that, every once in a while they snap.
They're very lucid.
And they're very lucid. And just out of the blue one day, boom, he snapped to. I ain't had a conversation with him in a year. And in 15 minutes, he carried me to his bedroom. He pulled out this old box, and he kept telling me, "Shh, I don't know how much time I have. Just shh." And he pulled out all of his old military records, 214, all of these things. And he said, listen, he said, Michael Todd, I want a full military burial. I want it all. And I said, yes, sir. He said, and at the time I was active duty. And he said, and you can make that happen. And he said, there's two things I need you to understand other than this. Number one, he said, son, you're not allowed to cry. He said, I ain't got much time left. You're not allowed to cry. Until they put me in the ground, you're not allowed to cry. I said, Papa, why? And he said, because your father, your uncle, your grandmother, they're going to be destroyed. Somebody's got to be strong for them. And that somebody's you. And that somebody's you, son.
It goes back to what I'm saying about being masculine, being a leader, having a responsibility, 100%, all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
and the second thing he said, family
needs a man.
He said, I don't have time. I don't have much time left. And he said, but I got to tell you, I'm excited because I've been wondering my whole life what Jesus looked like, and I'm about to find out. What do you? I mean, what? And then,
That's like
in like,
Jordan.
as
What do you
soon
say
as
to
he
that?
got that out of his mouth, he went right back to,
Yeah.
and he was gone.
Yes.
Gone, and he was dead like a month later. But that's there's you cannot. I have more reason than most people, and I admit to both of you guys, I was pissed at God for a very long time.
Sure.
For a very long time. But see, it was different for me. I wasn't one of those that God doesn't exist because he would have never let the no. I was like, I know you exist and you suck. Like I'd be the first to tell you. I'd walk around in my yard screaming at him. Like, I mean, Lord, you know my heart now. We're cool. But
Can I ask you a question about that? Because
yeah.
there's a very important scripture to me where Jesus says, "Cast all your cares on me," or "Cast all your cares on him, for he cares for you."
Yeah.
I think when Jesus said that, the point wasn't just to cast. I mean, for your situation, right? It's to cast the doubts and the
Yeah.
anger and the rage, because Jesus had big shoulders. He carried the 300-pound cross all the way up the hill. He laid on it. He died on it. Right? Cast all that. But then there's also, I think when he says that, all your cares, the doubt, the misunderstanding, the Lord, I don't understand what you mean when you say this in the Bible, like all of it, right? When God, like, he has big giant shoulders, and the scriptures also say like that God is mindful that we are but dust, which is one of the reasons that Jesus Christ became a man, so that he could come and live as a man
Yeah.
and understand everything that we go through. And he was also the only man, because when it says that, he's with us even to the ends of the earth, he's the only man that when he was on the cross, right, the last words before he says it is finished, he looks up and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah.
And so he's the only man that was ever truly alone, because we all think that we're alone, right, at some point in life, but we're not. We all have our brothers, we have God, he's always there for us, we have, our wives, if we're lucky enough to have those, our children. But Jesus was truly alone at one point right before his death. And so it's like the idea of, you said you were mad at God. I think that if you're not a human being and you never get mad at God, then you don't have a relationship with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, I would pace in my yard for weeks, and just like, dude, I talk to God like I talk to y'all. I mean, I don't do the holy. No, I don't.
If you were getting ready to say "Daddy God," I was going to leave. I was going to get up
dude,
and leave.
I don't do any of that, dude. I honest to God, and some people might think it's disrespectful, but like, I'm driving down the road and I'm like, look, bro, I got what's going. You know what I got coming, right, bro. I need your help, man. Like, seriously,
sure,
man, I need your help. And that's just, I have that relationship with him, and I don't know if he likes it or not, but I mean, obviously I'm doing okay. So, but no, that was a very dark time in my life, because I knew he existed and I wanted an answer. It's like Job, right, man, like Job. And then I had to revert back to that. Were you there when I created the winds, when I created the earth, were you there? And I'm like,
that's what he says to
no,
Elijah,
I wasn't,
right?
That's
what he says to Elijah.
Yeah, I wasn't there. And so I don't know why you did what you did. And I still don't. I mean, it's been years later, and I still don't understand it. But it's not for me to understand.
Now you're talking about childlike faith.
Yeah,
because a lot of people like to use childlike faith when because I think it's Peter that said, be ready in season. No, it's Paul. Be ready in season and out of season to give an account of your faith. Yeah, that's different. That's being studied. That's having a relationship with God. That's different. But what you're talking about is like the true childlike faith when you come to the precipice of eternity.
Yeah.
And we can't fathom eternity.
No,
mankind is made in the image of God, so we do things that we desire to go into eternity. Why does the architect design great buildings? Why does the artist sculpt great sculptures or paint great paintings or create great films? Because we desire things to outlast us, right? Why does the rich man buy lands that he can donate to his children. We all desire things to outlast us and to go into eternity. I think that's one of the things that when God said he made us in our own image, mankind, we envision a world where we're not in. And so we desire to transcend our lifetime and to go into eternity like God is. But when you come to that precipice and you're standing on the edge of the diving board as it was, and you're looking out into the void and you don't know, because we don't know, because nobody can tell, because nobody talks to us from that side. It's like, how can a man that's pulled off of a bus by Islamic terrorists and he's staring down the barrel of a gun and they say, recant Christ or die. How does that man have the balls to look into that barrel and see that bullet at the end and go, I will not?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I will not.
That's some, and we all would like to say that I would do that. You know, I mean, that, you know, and I got to be honest with you. I'm not God. You know, if somebody held a gun to my son's head, no, my kid ain't dying for you. You know, I'm not God.
Take me.
Exactly. Like, but you know, people's like, well, I've been looking for God. I can't find him. Well, you're not looking hard enough, you know, because he's not, and it's not a trick question. It's not a trick answer. It's so much more simpler that I think people look too hard. And people say all the time, wow, the miracles of the Bible, that don't happen no more. Yes, it does.
Bullshit.
It happens every day.
Sorry for saying it that way, but yeah.
No, you're right, bro. You're right. Like for example, for me,
actually, it's called A Case for Miracles, written by Lee Strobel. Go pick up that book. Don't know him, but it's a great book. I read it on my second deployment. Go pick that book up and read it. Like miracles.
So I didn't make it to 20 years. You know, I made it to 17 and some change. And then I was in a bad car wreck and had to have my hip replaced. And that was when Mad Dog Maddox changed the rule.
Yep.
That if you can't deploy in your MOS, your primary, you got to go. Well, guess what my primary was? It was 11 Charlie. It was infantry. And I couldn't do it with a fake hip. So they medically retired me. And that uniform was everything to me. Right. That is who I was. That is who I had been since I was 17 years old. And dude, when that uniform got taken away from me, I went to a very dark place. It ruined a marriage. I'll be the first to admit it ruined a marriage. It was like Superman taking his everything off and him just becoming a normal dude.
Right.
And it ruined a marriage. I got divorced over this. And I went through a very, very dark place for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that even in my sin, my anger, the rage, just the dark place I was in, even at the pits of my life, God sent me the woman that is 40 feet over there in that house right outside of my studio. He sent me that, even though I didn't deserve it. And I'll tell everybody, I didn't deserve it. I was a horrible human being. Brandon, this is how bad I was. When I met this woman that is my wife right now, I lied to her over and over again. I hid the PTSD. I hid the rage. I hid the anger because I knew that this woman was too good to let go. And I faked love for her because I knew what it looked like. I knew what it was supposed to look like. Right. I faked all of it just because I knew I couldn't let this one get away. Now, it ended badly, but she stuck it through thin and thin, and she knew. And she'll tell you now, she's like, I saw something in Todd that he could not see in himself. Right. I was in a dark place. I was a horrible human being. Horrible human being. Still hate myself for it. But she stuck it through, and she pulled me out of the fire. Yeah. And even in the darkest place I've ever been in my life, God still sent me an angel. He still sent me Kendra, who is my wife now, even when I didn't deserve it. And I always go back to a scripture Paul wrote in 1 Timothy when he talks about Christ died for us all the sinners, but I'm the worst. And I'm
That
like,
was Paul.
I'm like, bro, you, the guy that wrote 75% of the New Testament, you're the worst? Like, dude, you couldn't shake a stick at the stuff I've done.
I am kind of interested though that you bring that up, because I've always wondered what it was like when Paul got to heaven and then saw all the Christians that he killed, and they were just like the Indian guy at the soccer game, like,
sorry, my bad. Sorry. Yeah, like you got to look face to face with Stephen because he was there, but like, go. Sorry, guy.
Yeah.
But hey, you're here now. You're here.
Yeah.
You made it. Surprise, I'm here too. But talking about that, like, I mean, I had that moment with God that I believed in him. I've always believed in him, but I couldn't stand him. Like, first you take my grandfather away, then you take my career away from me. And then a man with no purpose is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't have one.
But do you look back on it now and do you think that God took those things away from you, or how do you?
See, I am very different when it comes to that kind of thing. Yeah, and I'm not going to say anybody's right or anybody's wrong, but it's just one of those things one of those discussions I think that are fun to have among Christians. I do not think that God has one particular path for every single person. I don't believe that. I think that,
God's will.
Right? Yes, I do believe in God's will, but right. I do think that there is no 8-ball. God, should I go do this today? Sure.
Yeah. What should I eat for breakfast? God?
Exactly. No, I think, well, hey, Todd, I gave you these gifts. If you want to go do that, as long as you do it in my name, I'm going to bless it. Or if you want to go over there and do that, as long as you do it in my name, I'm going to bless it. Or if you want to go back there.
Different lessons we got to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a brilliant. So a lot of people don't know. I did 2 years of college before I enlisted, and I was actually originally studying to be. I was studying biblical literature and ministry. I was going to be a pastor. That's where I started off.
I have a degree in theology.
Okay, see, I can tell. But anyway, I had a brilliant teacher in college. And he described it this way. He said the will of God is like a path, and at certain points it gets very, very wide.
Yep.
Very wide, and you can be down here and following the will of God, or you can be up here and following the will of God. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, and then at certain points they come to gates, and it's a very narrow gate, right? Like, for instance, you have to go by way of the cross. You have to ask Jesus Christ to forgive you of your sins and accept his gift of grace for your life. That is a narrow gate. And then you get out of that, and then the road can get very wide again for a while. And then for some people, marriage could be a very narrow gate. This is the person that I have for you, right? And for them, you are the person I have for them. That could be a narrow gate. I think for some people, marriage might even be a little bit wider of a gate, where it's like there are multiple people, but if you make those vows before God, okay, you've chosen this one down here. Now it's going to lead your life over here. But as long as you're still following God, you're still in his will, and that path gets wide and it gets narrow, but you're always following him. If that makes sense. And that's the way that
and that's a perfect explanation. And to go full out nerd Marvel on you. No, I do not believe in the sacred timeline in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I just don't.
I don't either.
I think everybody now, there are certain things that are different. I think people have callings on their lives, if you're going to be a pastor or things like that. That's
called into the ministry.
Yeah, that's very different. But again, I think we use the term pastor very differently than they used it back in the day. I mean, and I don't like the way the big C's doing it now. I don't, when I got my degree in theology, I was doing youth ministry in a Southern Baptist church in Rockingham, North Carolina. And this was the cemetery was in the backyard. That's how old.
Yeah, I know exactly where you went to church, dude.
Cemetery's in the backyard.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And like, they didn't do music. It was no piano, organ, hymns, page 52. All right. I don't get down like that. I don't. But I don't don't make fun of people who worship that way. You know, you worship
Right.
God however you want to. You know, I mean,
As long as it's in spirit and in truth, right?
100%. I get closer to God with the top off my Jeep driving down the road. You know, just
you
having
know what it is for
conversations.
me, man? Because I grew up in the church, I got very jaded very quickly of going through the same scriptures, the same sermons, the same, because it was my father was the pastor, and I love you,
Yeah.
Dad, because I know he's going to see this. But it was like you go through
trouble.
the same parables, the same sermons. It's
Yeah.
like I get it. I can
we
quote the
please move
scripture.
on?
Right.
Yeah.
Where I find where I get closer to God now is it's not in the faith aspect, because that was beat into me very, very young. Train up a
Mhm.
child on the way he should go, and he will not soon depart from it.
Yeah.
You know, but I like to go through the dissertations and read from smart men that equate scripture to geology, and scripture to
Yes.
biology, and
Yes.
scripture to history, and I like to see where those things intersect, and
Yeah.
that's where my faith gets stronger every day.
Yeah, and
Like,
you have that moment.
did you
like,
see? Did
I
you?
see what
Yeah,
you
did
did
you?
there. I see what you
Right.
did
Well,
there.
for instance, did you see this? The story, I think it was last week, where they it was an Italian group of historians, and they looked at the shroud of
Turin. They did
Turin,
Turin.
and they went back and they looked at it and they said, hey, this thing was originally debunked, right?
In the
And they said it
80s
only went
by
back
Oxford.
to 1350, but we're looking at it now and we go, no, we got to take samples of it, and it definitely goes back to
Yeah.
Jesus's time.
Yeah.
It's definitely that old.
And then they did the AI photo. Did you see that? Yeah.
I did, yeah. And
we actually,
I love stories like that.
Yeah,
because
and we talked about that on the show. Like,
I did see. I do watch you guys, by the way. I am actually a fan. I'm actually a fan first.
And I said pre-show. You know, we talk about these things pre-show. Me and Graham, we're a lot alike in a lot of ways, but we're a lot of different in a lot of ways. Like Graham will venture out into like Catholicism and things like that, and he'll get way deep in the rabbit hole, like with Martin Luther and Calvin and all that thing. I take a very logical approach to scripture. When it came to the shroud, and the artificial photo, I was like, look, great. If that particular thing causes one person to go, I need to look at this.
I need to look at it a little bit deeper.
And they make an eternal decision, so be it.
Yeah. No,
great.
I'm with
all
you.
For it. For me,
with you 100%.
For me, I'm like, cool. Great. I don't need science to prove my faith. You know, I'm not there.
I had a really interesting conversation with a really good friend the other night that is right on the edge of accepting Christ. And he even told that to me. He was like, look, I'm prepared to believe. I do believe in God. Very similar story to you. He grew up in the South, North Carolina area. And he's just like, I grew up in the church. I'm prepared to believe in the church. Like, I went to church all my life, but he's just like, I just need a little bit more. Like, he's just looking for that thing where it's like, I can prove it's true. And like, I can talk to you all day about Jesus Christ.
Never going to get that.
I know. I can talk where Jesus Christ talks to the Pharisees and he said, you wicked generation, you'll never be given a sign because, you know, you didn't believe when I was here. But we got to talking about it and we got on, you know, evolution versus creationism. And he was like, well, you know, we know from the fossil record that the earth is millions and millions of years old because look at the rocks, and they dated the rocks. And I said, that's a very interesting thing you brought up. And I went back and I read Genesis chapter 1 to him, right? And day 1, God says, let there be light. There was light, there was darkness. That was day 1. Day 2, he talks about gathering the seas together and making the land, which is the rocks. And then there was morning and there was evening the second day. And then day 3, he goes into, I believe, the vegetation and all of that. And then on day 4, I'm going to test your Bible knowledge there, theologian. On day 4, what did he do?
That was a long time ago.
It's all right. All right. So on day 4, because I read it just last night, on day 4, he says, let there be a greater light to shine by day and a lesser night.
Yeah, the sun and the moon. Yeah.
To shine by night. And then he creates the stars. And he said, let them count days, weeks, and seasons. And then he creates the ability of time. and
Yeah.
he spins
Yeah.
the world. And so I said, if you go back and you look at that, and scientists are telling you that rocks are older than we can date. Well, I'm telling you, in the Bible, it says that God created light, energy, then he creates the seas and the rocks, and then the plants, and then
Then he separates the seasons.
Then he separates the seasons and makes time. So even by my own Bible, it says that days and weeks and seasons and our ability to mark time is newer than the very earth, the very rock that we're standing on.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that.
Yeah,
so it's like I'm not a great thinking man. I just look at the Bible. I'm just a dumb Green Beret. I'm just a dumb people mechanic is what I tell people. But when I look at the Bible, I go, it's all there. It says it in chronology.
Yeah. And I take a very, very much more redneck approach to it, to that. Well, I need more. Okay, really simple. Here's a glass.
Yours is empty. You should probably
make it live. Why can't we replicate that? Okay. Why can't we take something non-living and create something living?
Right.
All right. You want to use your scientific method and rinse, repeat, and all that good stuff. Never in the history of man can we create something living from something that's non-living.
That's just
because it takes
non-existent.
Yeah, because it takes intelligent design to
we
do
can't
that.
We can't even take things that are living, like human stem cells. Stem cell research has completely petered out. We can't even take things that are living and convert them into something else. My dad always liked to tell one of these his anecdotal, like, open up the sermon jokes. So tell me if you've heard this one, because I'm sure all pastors have it. But it's the scientist that's like, oh, he looks up to heaven. He says, "Hey, God, we can do everything you can do now." So God opens the clouds, and he goes, "Oh, okay." And he brings the man up, and he goes, "All right, let's have a creation contest." The scientist says, "Well, I can do anything you can do." He goes, "Okay, I want you to create man out of dirt." And the scientist goes, "Well, all the proteins and everything is in the dirt that I need." And so he scoops down and he scoops up some dirt and he puts it in a jar. And God goes, wait, what are you doing? And he goes, "Well, I'm going to do what you did. I'm going to make man out of dirt." God says, "Oh, no. You go get your own dirt." I made that.
I haven't heard that. That's good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like that. That's really good.
You go get your own dirt.
I like
but anyway,
that.
I don't know how long we have you tonight. And there's one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, if we can rotate. And this is going to be kind of a hard pivot, but I do want to.
Fine. Let's go.
I do want to ask this from you. So you get out of the military, you get out of AGR, out of recruiting, and then you and Graham, you said you've been friends since like you were 8, and you get into the streaming, the podcasting world. And I do have kind of a self-serving reason for asking you this, which we'll get to.
Sure.
But what I guess motivated you into going this route? Like how did you, because like this is, Brandon and I, we've been doing this for about a year. Brandon's been doing this channel a little bit longer than me, but I've been on the internet doing the social media space for about as long as he has. And then we kind of cross streams, touch tips, whatever you want to call it. And we joined together about like 8 months ago now, Brandon.
About that.
And we're doing this, and it's starting to gain some real traction. But I can absolutely say this is a full-time job. By the time you talk about when you talk about like getting ready for an interview, like you're putting together your live stream, like it is a full-time job. If you're not on camera, you're looking stuff up, you're making clips. Like we do all of our own video editing. So what
24/7 right here. Dude.
Yeah. And it also, it almost like on Sundays I put it away. I have to have one day a week where it's like, I have to be off that damn thing. I can't stand it. And even my wife's like, "Are you really going into that office again?" And I'm like, dude, I have to, because if I'm not getting ready for an interview, building the studio, putting up video clips, like keeping up with the 24/7.
I'm either on X researching, and now September 3rd hits and I start this show.
Right.
And,
so now you're double timing.
I've got here and here.
Yeah.
So I'm researching for 2 shows.
So how did you get into it? Can you kind of walk us through that? Why? Can you give us the how, the why? Like talk about that for a little bit.
I wish I could tell you it was like a magical thing. It was a complete and total freak accident that I am standing where I am right now. Like I said, me and Graham, I've known Graham since he was probably about 8 years old. I'm a little bit older than Graham. When he was in high school, I was already on my first deployment. Like I met him when he was like 8. We didn't cross paths again until I was like 20. And I just got home from my first deployment. I walked into my grandmother's house, and I knew my sister was there. My baby sister Brandy was there, and so I went to go see my grandparents and my sister. And Graham was sitting at the dining room table, and I looked at him and I was like, "Who the hell are you?" And he goes, "Well, I'm Graham." I said, "Is that supposed to mean something to me?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm your sister's boyfriend." And I looked at Brandy and I looked at him and I said, "Who told you that?" And he just, because he knew, and so I am like never serious. That is my problem. Okay, I'm always poking at something. And so I sat down at the table and I'm
That's
looking at him.
Team.
Yeah. And I look at him and I was like, "Buddy, you know where I just got back from, right?"
Mm.
And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have any idea what I had to do over there?" And those are the people I don't like. Those are people I don't like. Imagine what I'll do to you if you hurt my sister. Okay. So fast forward a couple years, he gets old enough. He joins.
I don't know if you guys can hear this.
He joins the military. And we separate. He goes on his deployments and things like that. I go to North Carolina. I come back, and me and him end up in the same office recruiting together.
Okay.
And so he starts his video rants while we're working together. Like his first video that went millions of views. Like I was right like there. And so like he's starting to gain traction. This was before being an influencer was a thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I know he goes back that far. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember walking into our office one day and I hear him talking. And I'm like, who the hell is he talking to? And I go back in the very back of our office and he's standing there and like he's flexing, and he's a big dude now. I mean, he's not tall. Me and him are about the same height. He might be a little bit shorter, but he's got me by about 20 pounds. Like he's especially back then, he jacked dude.
Yeah.
And he's standing in front of it was a board on his phone, the people who make C4, the old pre-workout.
Yep, I remember.
And he was going to work for them. And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, we got to go do a presentation down the road." And so he sits me down and he was like, "Hey, look, dude, and he always bounced, he respected me enough. He joined the military because he saw what it did for me and things like that. And he always, he valued my opinion. And it's kind of funny because when we first started our relationship, I was the big brother, and now I am much older, but now he's the big brother.
Sure.
So, but he's like, and he laid it all out. This is what I plan on doing. This is what I'm thinking about doing. He said, what do you think? And I said, "Listen, man, I'm your friend. My responsibility as your friend is to tell you what Jesus loves, the truth. It's not to pat you on the back and tell you everything's going to be all right." I said, "Here's the thing. Do you want to give up a sure thing?" I said, "You've got almost 10 years in. You've got health care, free health care. You're married. You have children. What are you going to do about health insurance for them?" I said, "But if you've got all that planned out, man, go forth, do great things. I will always be your biggest fan." You know that. And, he took off. I mean, he left, he started doing his thing, and he became 10 years later, he's the Graham Allen we all know now.
Right.
And, we kept in contact. We talked to each other all the time throughout the years. And he would always tell me, "Hey man, I got a spot for you." And I'm like, "Dude, I got 12 years. I'm not going anywhere." I got 14 years. I'm not going anywhere. I said, "Graham, I will stand on my head in a ditch. Like, I'm not giving up my retirement." And, well, then I got injured really bad, almost died, had a head-on collision, and my knee hit the dashboard so hard that my femur just exploded through my hip socket.
Shit.
So had to have 2 surgeries to fix that. One Band-Aid, and then a couple years later, a full replacement. Yeah. So
I'm
I
a
set
medic.
off
I know how bad that injury is.
Yeah. Acetabulum gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
His
Gone.
acetabulum is
Completely gone. And let me just tell you, when they tell you the femur fracture is the worst thing in the world,
Nope.
it is.
Well, how many screws?
Woo, 8.
Woo! Yeah, you was done, dude.
Yeah.
You a bionic man now.
Yeah, dude, man, I got just as much metal in my body as Wolverine. I'm telling you. Like I set
You're
off.
like, listen. You're like, listen. MRI? No, I can't do that, lady. Like,
don't
even get me close to that machine.
Dude, and to get off topic, and I swear I'll come back, but really quick, I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina airport. Okay, and you stand like this.
Been there many times.
The little thing goes around you, and they're like, "Sir, we got to carry you back to this room right here." I'm like, dude, and I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm like, dude, and I have a card. My wallet's in my Jeep, but I have a card that has my equipment in my hip on it.
Right. Yeah.
And I hand them the card, and they're like, we still got to take you. I said, okay, all right, cool. So I walk right in the room. As soon as I step in, I just straight
trousers to the floor, dude, like a UA, baby.
Dude, and I swear, the scar on my hip, it goes, dude, it looks like I got bit by a shark on my butt. Like it really does. And I mean, I'm around my ankle. The dude walks in and he goes, "Oh man!" I was like, "Told you."
Yeah.
And he goes, "You're good." Anyway, so
I've been in several surgeries. For anybody that knows anything about surgery, for anybody out there that's a nerd like that in the medical field like me, ortho surgeons are like freaking monkeys. It looks like being in a car shop when they're doing that stuff, because they have drills, hammers. They have this one. If anybody has to have their femur, like a rod put down their femur, they literally have a picket that they line it up and they go kink, 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 and they're just like they're on the surgical bed and they're slamming it.
Yes,
it looks like a car
dude,
repair.
The
dude.
surgeon
like, oh
looked
my
at
God.
me for my replacement. They wheel me back in the room and they stick me in this bed where it holds your arms.
Yep, you're in the medieval
it
torture
like
chamber.
They put William Wallace in Braveheart. All right, and I'm laying there and I'm like, I look at my surgeon. I said, "What the hell are y'all doing?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, we got this little robot here, and what this robot's going to do is it's going to grab your foot after you're asleep, and it's going to snatch your leg out of a hip socket. And then I'm going to go in, and I'm going to cut." And he explained everything to me. And my response was, "Are you recording this?" And he was like, "No, why?" I said, "Because I want a copy."
Yeah.
And he's like, "You would watch it?" I said, "Hell yeah.
I want to know.
That is
dude.
awesome."
Yeah.
But yeah, like, no, they beat that rod into your femur, dude, because they got to drill a hole through it.
Picket pounder.
And dude,
it's wild to watch.
When I woke up from the surgery and he told me, and he was like, "Dude, you're not going to have any pain in your hip. Your knee and your thigh, you're going to pray for death," because I had to hammer that rod in your, and I was like, man, when that stuff wore off, he wasn't lying. I looked at my wife. I was like, "Shoot me, please, just put me down."
I just had my labrum repaired, and when I came out from under that,
4 times, 4 times already.
Anyway, he
goes off. I end up retiring, and I worked as a GS on the air base here in Columbus for a little while. Okay. Hated it. Absolutely hated being a GS employee for the Air Force.
Probably because you actually wanted to do your job. None of them want to.
Yeah, exactly. And I could go on forever about the union. Mm-hmm. Oh my Jesus Lord!
We're going to talk about where they need to cut fat from the DoD, boy. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, they could trim a lot of it.
Warriors aren't trained to be put on a shelf.
No, man.
We don't do that.
No, not at all. So I got out of that. My father, like I said prior, he owns an air conditioned business, and it's doing very well right now. And so he just reached out, and I've told him for years, you can't afford me, bro. Like, number one, I'm not doing that work. I'm not climbing in no attics. I'm not doing none of that crap. And he just called me and he's like, "Hey man, I know you hate what you're doing. Just come help me run the business. I don't want you to actually do the labor because I know you can't because of your surgeries." And I did that for a couple years. And, and Chris, you'll figure this out when you retire. And Brandon, I'm sure you already know, dealing with civilians sucks.
Yes.
Like that whole customer is always right thing is a crock of crap.
Yep.
And so doing that for 2 years, having to just be talked to like I was a dog and just smile. And finally, I
don't think I can go from an E7
it sucks,
to doing
dude.
that, dude.
It sucks, man. Like,
does.
and so I told my dad, I said, look, bro, I said, I love you, but I need a few days off. I'm going to take 3 or 4 days. I got to get out of here. I'm this close to being homicidal. I got to go. And he got it. He's like, I get it, man. You know, I get it. I don't think you do. Because I could tell a private where to go, what to do, and what to go do with himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do that here. So I'm going to go chill.
Go to the beach.
So I called Graham and I said, hey, bro, I'm headed your way. I'll be there in a couple days. I just need a few days to break loose. I haven't seen you in a few years. And he's like, man, come hang out. And so I got up there and he's like, hey, here's the address of where my office is and stuff. And he said, be here at 7 a.m. I said, shit, 7 a.m. The hell for? And, 7 a.m.
That's a weird way to say noon.
Yeah. I was like, you do realize I'm on vacation, right?
Yeah.
Bring your PTU.
Yeah. So I show up at 6:55, and I walk through the door and I meet the producer at the time was Zach, and just super good dude. I still keep tabs with him, talk to him daily. And he's like, hey, I'm introduce him. He's like, hey man, there's a chair right there. And I see the studio and he's like, there's a chair right there. Go sit in it. And I said, okay. So I sit down and they swing a mic in front of me, hand me a headset.
You got ambushed, bro.
And like, I'm sitting there and I look at Graham, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, man, dude, I talk about you all the time on the show. This was back when it was audio, when it was just audio.
Yeah.
And he's like, I talk about you all the time. You're in my book, which my real name is not in the book for whatever, legal reasons. And he's like, I just want you to be on the show. And I was like, all right. So I did an episode. Yeah, I did an episode. And he's like, you gonna be back tomorrow? I was like, yeah, I'm here for like 3 days. So I did 3 episodes with him, just back to back to back. And a couple people reached out to him. The producer, Zach, told him, he's like, man, you got to get this dude. Like you and him y'all just mesh. He's like, well, yeah, we've known each other our
I was going to
whole
say
lives.
that's that brother relationship that you can't replicate.
Yeah. And like that, like literally when we went live on Rumble for the first time, he called me, this is hot seat. Now he explained it like, this is hot seat Todd, because we're not sure if he's going to be here. We might fire him. So he's in the hot seat because he knew like this is a very dialed down version of myself. Even now on the show, I'm the loose cannon. I'm the wild child of the show.
Yeah.
They never know what I'm going to say. And even pre-show, Royce, who is an outstanding producer, very young guy, but outstanding. He's like, Todd, you can't say that. Like you can't. I said, are you sure? He's like, no, you can't say that. That's why I'm so excited to have my show, because I'm going to be unfiltered.
And I want you to talk about your show in a little bit.
But but no, Hot Seat Todd was born right by accident. It like I had no plans to do anything like this, but the more I got to thinking about it, it's like praying at the end of the show. For example, that was my thing.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I had wanted to ask you about that. I closed the show one time doing that long time ago. Right.
And I asked Graham, prior to the show, I was like, hey man, we close the show. Can I just say a prayer?
And can I say the reason I wanted to ask you about that is because I remember listening to Graham 2-3 years ago, prior to my deployments, and they coming back and seeing you on there and being like, oh, they've upgraded. They are adding more people. But then seeing the prayers at the end of the show, I was like, it completely changes everything about Graham, as it were. Like because he used to do the rants and whatever. He was the angry guy. John Burke. I remember like him and John Burke were kind of like like this for a while in the whole
Yeah.
like military influencer community.
Yeah,
like
right.
right. And then it's like all of a sudden you come on and now I'm seeing prayers, and now you guys have your third chair, the dude that always gets the I can't remember.
Tony.
Yeah,
Tony.
Tony.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
love
couldn't remember his
Tony.
name off the top of my head. But
Mexican cartel.
yeah.
COVID surviving.
And
Yada
I was
yada
like,
yada.
I just remember being a Christian guy in the military myself, and especially a Christian in special forces, which is a sub community, let's call it, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and I'm like, it actually made me want to watch your show more. I was like, oh, and the only reason I don't catch with you guys a lot is because you're on when I'm up working out in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like there is kind of like a time mismatch there, but I was like, dude, I like the direction they're going, and they're trending more Christian. Like they're going more that direction.
That's something. And I did it one time. And I have to admit, the brain behind doing it all the time was my wife, Kendra. She said, you need to close. And this is how God works. Okay.
Sure.
I am not a praying person. I'm not. I am really not. Like, my wife is a prayer warrior. She prays for everyone and everything. I mean, she is. That's not one of my strong suits. And it's like God was like, all right, you don't, okay, you're going to close every show with a prayer just because you say you're not a praying person. How you like me now?
My grandma always told me if your prayer life is lacking, it's because you're not praying for others.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I was like, oh,
like literally my email, when I started doing that, my email is flooded with prayer requests. And I'm just like, really? Like, dude, I'm like, all right.
God said, bet. Like,
I'm a praying person now. Okay,
bro.
Great.
You got me.
Yeah, God's like, oh, you're not a prayer? Hold my beer and watch this, boy. Here's an email. Here, it's like, honestly, I was thinking like Bruce Almighty.
Yeah, when he goes to the file cabinet.
I went,
yeah,
man. And so, but like, it's amazing. And here we are now, 150, 160,000 followers, 170, 140 people watching the show. And just the way God works, dude, I'm telling you, and I said this earlier in the show, where people say, man, I'm looking for God and I can't find him. It's because it's not that you're not looking hard enough, it's you're not looking in the right place.
Well, the scripture says, if you seek me with your whole heart, you will find me.
100%. And I'll give you another little, hello, God, how are you? When me and my wife first started dating, she has a lot at Smith Lake. All right. It's in Alabama. Beautiful place. Gorgeous place. And she took me to it. And she's like, see that rock right there? That's my rock. God showed me that rock. And this is what I want to do with this place. I want to, because she's divorced, I'm divorced. And now we're married. And she's like, I want to do it right the second time. And I want to teach other people to do it right the second time. I really want to help build other people's marriages in a biblical way. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever, okay. So we fast forward.
I don't know. I wasn't really listening,
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, cool. Nice rock. Great. It's a rock. And the whole time I'm like, I wonder if there's fish over there. But anyway, so I'm going to this church that I've been going to for years. I love this church. Okay. And my kids go to her kids go to a different church down the road. And so I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm the man, spiritual leader. We're going to my church. Sorry. That's the way this works.
Bold move.
And so she's on me. Hey, I really want you to try this church. It's closer. The kids go to it. The kids love it. The kids love the leadership there. And I'm like, I don't care. I've been going to this church forever. I love this church. I don't want to leave it. It's not happening. Get out of my face, And so finally, one Sunday, she's just, continuing. And I'm like, fine. I'll go. And you know what happens.
God love
when
you wives out there.
Dude, yeah,
God
I know.
loves you.
Well, you know what happens when you go to a church you don't want to be in. You know, you sit there and you pick everything apart.
Everything apart.
You know, I'm like, the music sucks. The drummer's off note. Singer's out of key.
That dude can't play
That guy's
bass.
not even that guy's sitting down. I wasn't greeted at the door.
They didn't accept
You know,
me.
I mean, everything. I'm picking everything apart. Well, then the pastor stands
No
up.
old lady gave me a
exactly.
Worthington afterwards.
Exactly. Where's my Werther's original?
Yeah.
You know, I got no butterscotch.
Not a single old woman here has cakles. I know they can't cook.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then the pastor stands up and he starts teaching. It's a man, his name's Todd Stevens. And he starts preaching.
Shout out.
Yeah, huge shout out, because this man changed me forever. Okay. I'm sitting there and I'm like this at the beginning. I'm like,
Classic.
you know, what a happy Christian looks like. And as he continues to talk, I go,
oh.
And then he makes a nerd reference, like a Star Wars reference, like just straight out of the nerd. And I'm the only person in the room that got it.
Mm.
And I went, hey. All right. And so now I'm leaning in. And, you know, service is over. And I looked at my wife. I said, you know, wasn't that bad. It was
right.
okay. We can come back next Sunday.
Yeah, it's all right.
And so it's just like nerd reference after nerd reference. I mean, this dude is my spirit animal. I'm like, this dude is talking to me every Sunday. And like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, what are you doing to me? I had a good thing going over there.
I was comfortable over there.
Exactly. And so remember what I said earlier about what my wife wanted to do. Okay. So just 2 months ago, Todd announces that he's leaving the church, that he's stepping down as the pastor, and he's starting a thing called rejuvenating marriage. They're doing seminars in different cities across the country on weekends, rebuilding marriages in a biblical way.
Wow.
Now, at that point,
is he doing anything with military specifically? Because that would be incredible to get him tied in with.
Okay. Hear me. It's coming. The punchline's coming.
That would be incredible.
Right. So, Kendra, mine and her marriage, which of course, as a prior member of the military, I firmly believe that you're never good enough. You can always get better, no matter what it is. You know,
always improve your foxhole.
Yes, you can always improve your foxhole. She's like, I want to go to one of these things. And I'm like, oh.
Listen to a guy talk to me about my marriage. Like,
yeah. I'm like,
way better than me. I got it.
We're fine. We're good. I don't want to go to it. And it's in Atlanta. I hate Atlanta. I don't want to go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so we go. And it was awesome. Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday is awesome. It was so good that, you know, I looked at it and I'm sitting there, I'm watching. I'm like, his graphics kind of suck. I could probably fix those.
All right.
And so and they know me, I know them. And it's him and his wife, Miss Erin. And we talk afterwards. And I'm like, all right, man, I'm sold. I've got X amount of fans on Instagram. I got X amount of fans on the show. Got X amount of fans that are going to come to the new show. How do I get involved with you? How do I help you do this? And he's like, well, it's funny you ask. We're looking at within the next year actually helping people, getting other people to teach this class for us because the need is so great. I just had lunch with the dude yesterday. And I said, here's what I want to do. 6 to 7 months from now, I want to have a hot seat Todd weekend where I put it out there on my socials. I put it out there on my show. I try to get as many people to donate. So, you know, people who need help don't have to pay for it. You know, I can get other people to pitch in and pay for it. And And I said, dude, I want to help any way I can. And he's like, man, dude, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
He's like, you can come, you put it on the show. You show up, you help with registration, you give you give your speech, you do a meet and greet because the people are going to be there to see you. And he's like, man, eventually I want you to do it. I want you to teach the class. So people are not just coming to see Hot Seat Todd. They're coming to change their lives. Because, dude, I'm going to tell you, at this thing that me and Kendra went to, I saw grown men squalling because they realized they were not being the husband,
right,
the man of the house that they should have been.
Right.
And so God just brought me full circle, like into putting, and I'm just sitting here thinking of this just last night. Like, he connected me after a marriage was destroyed, 2 marriages, mine and Kendra's. He connected somebody that wanted to change people's marriages to somebody that was going to be popular enough eventually to do it and had a theology degree that could do it. And he brought those 2 people together, and then he introduced them to 2 people that could show them the way.
God doesn't waste any knowledge, and he doesn't waste any time.
No.
Brother.
And so, dude, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. And,
No,
and to
don't.
everybody, and to people that, and I know you're going to clip this, but my message.
Yeah,
to
actually, we
people,
did clip everything you just said.
Yeah. Well, my
It's already
message to
online.
people, my message to people that don't think God exists. Let me tell you something. My mother tried to abort me. She was on her way. My father caught her and stopped it. I shouldn't be here. And here I am, 41 years later, closing a show in prayer, about to hopefully start a ministry to save marriages in the near future, and doing everything I can to build his kingdom. And from a very unlikely place, coming from a Southern Baptist church, hated church, because at a Southern Baptist church, they tell you you're going to hell for everything. And I was
and there's
terrified.
a demon behind every tree.
I was terrified of God, terrified of him, thought God was a kid with a magnifying glass and I was an ant. Went from that to a UPC church that told me if I don't speak in tongues, I'm going to hell. And so I spent my teenage years in full out rebellion. I used to pray every night in tears, begging God for me to speak in tongues because I didn't want to go to hell. Because I went from a church where I was terrified of God to now I'm never going to get to see him because I can't do something that I don't choose to do, that it's a gift. And if God chooses to give it to me, I get it. And if I don't, then I'm going to hell. And so at some point I just said, well, if I'm going to hell, I'm about to earn it. And I went full heathen. Now, I never did drugs or never been arrested or anything like that, but that's just because I didn't get caught. And now here we are, survived 2 deployments. One, honest to God, dude, I shouldn't have. And Chris, I know Special Forces, you've heard all these stories. You probably lived a few of them yourself.
I shouldn't be here either, bro.
Yeah.
I brought home an 1.5 inch piece of shrapnel from an explosion that should have killed me.
Dude, I had an IED right next to me that didn't go off. And I was in a Humvee with no doors on it. Like, we were pulled off the side of the road. It was a daisy chain. And the one 10 feet from me didn't go off. The guy from EOD, he said, best thing I can tell you is, hey, you wouldn't have felt a thing.
Yeah, man.
Pink mist, baby.
That didn't happen to me in Afghanistan or Iraq, but in Germany, I had to fight a guy off to try to stab me with a 9-inch hunting field dressing knife. Caught that knife about 1 inch off my stomach. Wrestled with this dude, freaking size of Kane from WWF, man, huge guy. And
Good Lord.
I feel you. I felt like a long time after that.
Yeah, but my message to everybody is, look, until you're in the ground, your story's not done yet.
Never out of the fight.
Until they put you in the ground, God is not finished with you. He's not. And no matter what you've been through in your life, I don't care, because I've been through a lot. Dude, I've been beat with cords, chains. I've had bones broken by people who were supposed to love and care for me. I've been through the ringer, man, the absolute ringer. And if God can choose to give somebody like me a purpose in his kingdom, he can give it to anybody.
Amen. So
Anybody.
with that, Todd, please shout out where people can find you again, talk about the show, talk about your upcoming show, all that stuff. Give people a place where they can find you.
Yeah, man. So my handle on everything, Twitter, TikTok, everything is Todd Spears 1776. That is my handle on everything. You can catch Dear America Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern or God's time Central 8. That's God's time. 8 Central.
We are
There, Dear
definitely not
America,
on
all you got to
God's
do
time.
is just, dude, it's so easy to find Graham. You can literally search Graham Allen and find him that fast.
Yep.
My show will be at 1 Eastern, 12 God's time. It is called In the Hot Seat. My show is going to be a little bit different than Dear America and a lot of the shows that you see out there. We're not just going to talk about a whole bunch of laundry list of headlines. We are going to pick one particular person, one particular group of people, or one particular event and put them in the hot seat and get as deep as we can about that individual and about that person. And we're going to have as many guests as we possibly can and put them in the hot seat as well. I've already got a list started for upcoming guests, but I can tell you September the 3rd is the opening of the show, and the person that is going in the hot seat first is the person I'm pissed off at the most, and that is Tim Waltz. So Tim Waltz will be in the hot seat on day one, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to be Todd Unfiltered. Get ready.
We've been tearing him up over here. So
Todd
everybody
on Tim
go.
Violence. I like it.
Everybody go find Todd. Go find him. Go follow him. Thanks for listening, guys, tonight. That's what we got for you.
Absolutely.